We are live, Robert. Welcome to the Out There channel, live stream 266. That's almost the devil's number there, Robert. So, let's hope it goes okay. Sounds alright this end. It's louder than normal though. I must have turned it up on the headset maybe. Unless something else has changed in the background, you never know with Windows. Hopefully it's not too loud coming out on Google, else it will distort. Alien Grey. AJ's Alien Grey filmed over a lake sucking up water. Hey Susan. Someone's joining us. The counters are finally updated here. But I'm still using the old system, which I don't like using unless I have to. Going down to the base. We're back to the hello. Hello. Good to be back. We are back for another live stream with Robert and UFO cases. It should be fun, hopefully, as long as we don't get too many issues. And to be civil on the side, no hardcore swearing, misspell swears if you have to. It shouldn't be needing swearing anyway, but yeah, just ask questions on the side and join in the fun. Are you there, Robert? Let's
I
just
am.
check the. Let us know how it sounded on your end out there, guys. So what are we doing today, Robert?
Well, we got two pilot encounters, commercial pilots. The Nash-Fortenberry UFO near collision. It was over Newport, Virginia in 1952. And another one, the Chiles-Whitted pilot UFO encounter, Montgomery, Alabama, 1948. And in between that, to break it up, there's the English alien abduction spree in 1978. These are damn good cases, by the way.
Okay. Trying to type here on that funny angle again. Live stream. Let's do 66. So more abductions in UK. And pilot encounters. I thought we had most of those covered by now.
Hey, I mean, there's any number of them.
Sound is good. Thanks, Charles. Hello, Susan. Who else we got joining us? Only got 3. They said before we started that we had 7. So, what's the first link we're going to? Newport. Whereabouts the location? Newport, VA. What's that stand for? Virginia. So out near the coastline here, by the looks of it, where they have naval bases, I guess, and military ports. So it's on a little strip of land here. Is that correct? Have we got the right location?
Well, stop waffling and hit the link.
You need to be telling me if we're on the right map location here. Copy. Seems to be going a bit slow. Okay, looks like it's coming up.
Well, it's Newport, Virginia. It can't be that hard to find.
Well, I had the map up, and you could have just said, yeah, that's the right place. Let me just bring that up again. So, off the coast of America there, near, just above, where is it? Underneath Delaware, Virginia, North Carolina.
I think people are more interested in the incident, to be honest, than the location, you know, Paul. Because it happened in the air anyway.
West Virginia, that's where the Mothman comes from.
County Manor.
The Mothman area. It's all that spooky area where there's a lot of high strangeness. Remember, was it 537 parallel, whatever it's called? So that's just close down some of these ones. So I did actually search this one. It's about the pilot encounters, and there wasn't too many pictures for that. So kick it off. Let's see how we go.
Please.
I did actually report some errors to Microsoft through the about help on this, saying that we had some difficulty with web pages, so maybe they'll improve it with time.
UFO sighting over Newport, Virginia, in the summer of 1952 was not only witnessed by two experienced commercial airline pilots, but it came during an increased period of UFO sightings across the United States and, indeed, the rest of the world. Furthermore, each of those pilots was an experienced World War II pilot, and certainly au fait with pressure situations at high altitude, while controlling a plane, no less. It also occurred during a time when interest in UFOs and visitors from outer space was beginning to become entrenched in the collective psyche of many people on the planet. Of course, whether this is coincidental or consequential is perhaps open to debate.
Doesn't make it easy to resume where you left off from what I'm seeing anyway. The big picture there seems to be in the way.
What is also interesting about the case is that it perhaps unintentionally proves the credibility of many other sightings made in daylight hours of luminous dots flying in triangular or V formations. These sightings were almost always universally dismissed as ducks or geese flying in formation. And while this very well be the case with some of those sightings, the fact that...
You might want to bend your camera down a wee bit, Robert. CPU's starting to peak for some reason. Oh, what happened there? Okay, it seems to be stabilizing a bit again. I'll just select oh yeah, I'll select down before that bit there. And then I'll go past it.
And while this very well be the case with some of those sightings, the fact that the Nash-Fortenberry encounter displays those same details, only in the dark and much more close-up, in the words of Lauren E. Gross, casts some doubt on the liberal use of the bird explanation. Of even more interest are the comments of Major Dewey Fournette, who was involved with the Project Blue Book projects years later. He would claim the incident to be one of the most detailed and reliable cases of the times. It is certainly one of the most examined and investigated UFO sightings on record, and still fascinates UFO researchers and enthusiasts well over half a century later. It will likely continue to do so pending some disclosure of information or revelation concerning this most fascinating case.
Scrolled up the top, that stupid thing. Okay, we need to get plastic table contents. Okay. Ah, why is it not selecting it? Certainly a lot on this page here. See how it goes.
A sudden red-orange brilliance heading straight up from the ground. It was a little after 8 p.m. on July 14, 1952, when Captain Kepke, First Officer William Nash, and Second Officer William Fortenberry, with their Pan American World Airways DC-4 commercial plane on autopilot heading for Miami, having left New York. They were currently at 8,000 feet, and were over Chesapeake Bay near Norfolk, Virginia. They were around 6 minutes from declaring a position report to the Virginia Control Tower. It was Nash's intention, given that it was Fortenberry's first flight on this particular run, to point out natural landmarks, buildings, and city lights in order to use orientation aids on future flights. Although night was on the way, it was not yet entirely dark, although whatever light was left was limited. It was just after Nash had highlighted the city lights of Newport News and Cumberland, when a sudden red-orange brilliance of light appeared slightly east of the area. Both he and Fortenberry saw the lights. And perhaps of more concern, it appeared they were climbing and heading towards them. Nash would later state, "Almost immediately we perceived that it consisted of 6 bright objects streaking towards us at tremendous speed. They had the fiery aspect of hot coals, but of a much greater glow. Their shape was clearly outlined and evidently circular." He would go on to state that this uniform of color was the same on each craft, which themselves glowed around 20 times brighter than the city lights below them. Within seconds, no more than 5 or 6, the objects had traveled several thousand feet from the ground. An element of intelligence error.
Hang on, you want me to pause?
The closer the objects got to the airliner, the clearer the two men could see they were in a purposeful narrow echelon formation. The leader, according to Nash, was the lowest in the formation, with each falling craft slightly higher. Then, the leader appeared to attempt to slow suddenly. Nash would continue.
Okay, so it got to the end there.
Yeah. Well, I don't think it's too similar to the Foo Fighter incidents. They were generally white balls of light, weren't they? These were discs, and they were glowing red in formation. So I don't know. There's something different. And with the Foo Fighters, they were extremely small. Maybe only a meter across or so. These things were a bit on the large side. I think there was 8 of them altogether.
Right, he said 6 there, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah, and I think another 2 joined.
Oh, right. Did they pop out of nowhere, like a portal, or just?
Well, they came from their. Well, they came from the port side, all the way across to the starboard side.
So if they're flying near the coast there, there may have been UFOs in that case, and they may have come out of the sea, you see. That's what I was thinking.
Possibly. Yeah.
Red UFOs is very common for that area, though, because we covered quite a lot of stories of red type UFOs and then white UFOs. So red and white UFOs.
It's fairly common throughout UFO history, you know.
So we've got another quote here. I'll just keep on going. Looks like there's a lot of big pictures, so we'll just go. Have to pause it probably. When you just say pause when you want to talk.
We received this impression because the second and third wavered slightly and seemed almost to overrun the leader, so that for a brief moment during the remainder of their approach the positions of these 3 varied. It looked very much as if an element of human or intelligence error had been introduced in so far as the following 2 did not react soon enough when the leader began to slow down, and so almost overran him. As the 2 men continued to observe the row of glowing circular objects, they suddenly, and with lightning speed, changed their direction. They would flip on their edges with the glowing surface facing the pilot's right. As they did so, the bottoms of the craft were not clearly visible. This would lead the pilots to believe that the bottoms of the craft were, in fact, unlighted. The same appeared true for the edge of the objects. Nash would describe their overall appearance as being much like coins. As they continued to watch the incident unfold, taking no more than mere seconds, the 5 trailing objects slid over and passed the leader, lining up in the same formation as they were but now in reverse. They then flipped back to a flat altitude, still in formation. Following this, 2 more objects, which the pilots were unaware of previously, moved from underneath their plane at the same pace and in the same direction as the first 6. The newspaper clipping below shows this. Like a ball ricocheting off a wall. Nash and Fortenberry would liken the precise and abrupt directions of the strange formation to a ball ricocheting off a wall. After a moment, the lights blinked out before coming back on again, clearly moving towards the Newport news area in a graceful arc. Then, the objects would blink out one by one seemingly randomly, and against their previous uniform nature, until all had vanished from sight. This last detail is interesting. We have examined on multiple occasions the reports that strange objects go out as opposed to simply disappearing. Had this happened here? Perhaps another interesting detail offered by the pilots is that there appeared to be a connection between the lights and the speed of the craft. Again, this is a notion that has come up in several other cases, sometimes even resulting in such lights changing color in sympathy with the object's pace. Nash would state, the original 6 had dimmed slightly before their angular turn, and had brightened considerably after making it. Also, the 2 others were even brighter, as though applying power to catch up. As the bland blackness took hold of the sky once more, the 2 pilots stared out of the window. Neither spoke for several seconds. Each was expecting something else to appear. However, it appeared, the incident was indeed over. Although neither said the words to each other.
Yeah, what have we got here? Some emanation picture. Yeah, what do you want to say?
Yeah, it's interesting though, isn't it? As they seem to accelerate, the intensity of the light increased. It kind of reminds me a little bit of, what I seen, which was skimming over the water. As it slowed down, the light seemed to dim a little.
Yeah.
And that stuck in my head. I always remember that, It was extremely bright when it was coming off the horizon, going at an impossible speed, to be honest, for something that was maybe 10, 20 feet over the water. And as it slowed down, as it hit the coastline, it dimmed. So this rang a bell with me. Interesting.
And what do you think that is? Friction?
I don't know. You could be that. But it could be something to do with a telltale sign of a propulsion system. I'm not really sure.
Well, turn down the energy and slow down.
Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yours may have gone under the water, maybe even.
No, it never went under the water while I was watching it. It was clearly above the water because I could actually see the reflection of the light on the sea. It lit the sea up all around it, And it wasn't because I was actually looking down on the object. I was about 15 feet above sea level, and I was looking slightly down on it as it came to my left, where it was parallel to me. And I thought it was going to crash because it didn't have far to go before it hit the coastline. And but the slowdown was so smooth. It was like seamless, bewildering, to be honest. But this is the only other case that I've heard where the lights have dimmed as it slowed down, and the intensity of the light has increased. The guy says there was some kind of pilot error, but because the objects at the back were almost overtaking the one at the front. I'm not sure if that was that's a human perspective, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's the way a pilot's seen it. You know, thinking in very human terms. I don't know. I just don't know.
If we knew, we wouldn't be talking about UFOs. We'd be talking
I
about.
know.
We'd be talking about what they're telling us, because it would already be out in the open, and they'd be telling us all the things of the universe that we're yet to find out. Okay, so I'll just select some more text. I'll just select all the rest of the text here. Oh, most of it anyway. Just go on a bit. And we'll pause it when you want to pause it. Where's it gone? Continue, yes. It changed it.
Although neither said the words to each other, in their report and subsequent writing on the incident, they would state, "There were flying saucers, and we had seen them." They would continue that if either had been alone, so surreal was the incident, they would have doubted what they had seen. As each one backed up the other, though, there was no doubt in their minds of the authenticity of the incident. 12 seconds that would change the outlook of two lives. From start to finish, as unbelievable as it might sound, the entire episode lasted, give or take a second on either side, only 12 seconds. The pair would ask themselves the next obvious question: had anyone else witnessed the magnificent display, or only them? The captain had taken himself out of the room shortly after the plane went on to autopilot to finish paperwork. Now Fortenberry entered the compartment where Kepke sat. It was obvious from how he was deeply concentrating on his work that he had seen nothing unusual. From there, Fortenberry could see some of the 10 passengers on board, some of whom were actually sleeping. Calmly, and in a matter-of-fact tone of voice, he would inquire if any of the passengers had witnessed anything unusual. No one had. He would return to the cockpit where Nash sat, his own mind going over and over the 12-second sequence they had just witnessed. It was at this point when they were due to radio their position to the control tower. They would do so, as was standard procedure. Then, however, they would begin a second radio transmission. And what's more, they would request that this second transmission go straight to the military. It read, "Two pilots of this flight observed 8 unidentified objects vicinity Langley Field. Estimate speed in excess of 1,000 miles per hour. Altitude 2,000 feet. At this point, the captain, who had finished his paperwork, entered the cockpit. The pair debriefed him on what they had seen, as well informing him of the second message sent to the Norfolk control tower. He would take charge of the plane, telling them to make their notes to report to the airline upon landing.
After this.
Their findings were almost as dramatic as the event itself.
There you go.
Yeah, so what they've done, they fed the data into the computer, and they came up with, well, an impossible kind of speed, and it also made, I think it was 2 90-degree turns at some stage. I don't really know, and I bet they were sorry they actually said it. Maybe they were better off not reporting the incident at all, which we were about to find out, because this case became, something of great attention over the years, and Donald Menzel wouldn't let it go. He looked at it as a cold case and came up with multiple explanations. He couldn't make his mind up. Now, we're familiar with Menzel, I hope, aren't we? The Harvard guy, astrophysicist.
Well, we might be, but maybe newcomers out there not.
Yeah, he was an arch debunker for many, many years. He wrote several books, and I actually got one of his books here with me. And for tonight, I read over the chapter. The World of Flying Saucers, Donald H. Menzel. I'm not sure who is.
Hold up the book to the camera.
Yeah, sure.
I'll just bring it up on screen here. Oh, come on, update. Oh, it's even got tatty corners on it.
Oh God, yeah, it's a second-hand copy.
Alright.
In fact, it's an awful book. He just tries to explain everything away, and he's not a nice person either. You know, to be honest, Menzel. If he couldn't attack the data, he'd attack the witness.
Alright. What the hell you got in your t-shirt there? You got a bloody goblin.
No, it's my mate bought it on.
Oh, right. E.T.
Yeah.
It looked like a red-eyed goblin that you had there for a minute. And it's his finger
Yeah.
pointing upwards, not his ear. Yeah, so shrink your deck down. You're meant to be putting it out there, Mercon.
Mate, it's like 25 degrees even at this time of evening, you know, and
you need some t-shirts.
Yeah, it's no time to be wearing a sweat top.
So you want us to resume here, or you want to keep on talking?
Yeah, go ahead.
Itself. After witnessing such speeds, conventional aircraft appear standing still. Using a Dalton Mark 7 computer, they would attempt to calculate the angle of the object's approach to their aerial location, followed by the angle of their departure. The findings would suggest that the objects had made a staggering 150-degree course change in an instant. Attempts to calculate the g-force involved in such a maneuver were almost beyond their calculation, due to the bizarre numbers involved. However, they did manage to calculate a more accurate estimate of their speed by working out the amount of time the episode took compared to the distances covered. They would figure, as opposed to the previous estimate of 1,000 miles per hour, and ranging from a conservative estimate to a more realistic one, that the objects were traveling anywhere from 6,000 to 12,000 miles per hour. Dalton Mark 7. As if to demonstrate just how bizarre and out of the ordinary the circumstances actually were, the two pilots would notice an approaching four-engined airliner during the remainder of the journey to South Florida. Nash would note, "If any normal happening could have increased the effect of our night's experience on us, it was that commonplace event." He would continue that in normal circumstances, and
You scroll back up a little bit there. So it was fairly crude kind of calculation, wasn't it?
Well, I wouldn't say
they still
crude.
use it today, but it's
like
a
an
bit more
abacus.
sophisticated. Yeah, exactly. But at NICAP, they worked out the speeds at even more, not 6 to 12,000 miles per hour, up to 28,000 miles per hour. Well,
back
whatever
in
it was,
back in 1952. Yeah,
mate, it was whatever it was going damn fast. And with the turns it was making, it should have been impossible.
Right. You want us to carry on?
Yeah.
Right up until that point in their aviation careers, such an approach of an airplane, traveling at around 500 miles per hour, would seem pretty brisk. Now, however, given the mind-blowing speeds they had just witnessed, the plane appeared as though standing still. Combined aerial experience and intense military training yields remarkable data. Using the combined vast aerial experience, Nash and Fortenberry would work out educated guesses on several other aspects of the objects and those crucial 12 seconds. And because the incident occurred with the pilots looking down on the objects, using the ground's appearance to estimate such details, it would give the pilots some further interesting data. For example, using their experience of how the wing spread of a DC-3 appeared to them at that distance, they would estimate the objects had a width of 100 feet, and were approximately 15 feet from top to bottom. Nash would further reason that due to the thousands of hours spent flying at an altitude of around 8,000 feet, pilots began to develop an instinct judgment regarding the distance, size, speed, and height of objects below them. In short, they would stick by their workings out and estimates. Furthermore, as mentioned above, both pilots were also experienced U.S. Navy pilots, with both seeing active duty during the war. With this in mind, they were also more than experienced in adjusting to unexpected and unfamiliar aerial objects. In fact, part of their training with the U.S. Navy was to recognize and identify aircraft during such high-pressure missions. They felt their sighting and the data they had compiled for it from what little they witnessed was sound. However, when they would land several hours later, things would take a rather ominous and frustrating turn. Cover-up attempts or discreet corroboration. It was shortly after midnight when the DC-4 passenger plane touched down at Miami International Airport. Bizarrely, upon entering the operations office, they would discover their message regarding their sightings waiting for them. There was, however, an addition to the copy. It read, "Advise crew 5 jets were in area at the time." And with that, at least as far as the military were concerned, or certainly hoped, there was nothing more to say on the matter. However, given that they had witnessed 8 objects, combined with their absolute conviction that they had not witnessed merely jets, when Air Force investigators made contact with them the following morning, July 15th, at just after 7 a.m., they would stand their ground on the matter. So much so, that a meeting was immediately scheduled to take place in several hours.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, 5 jets. Well, okay, one, the pilots couldn't count. There's a big difference between 5 and 8, isn't there? Jets don't behave like that. Nor would they go into a near-miss situation with a commercial aircraft. That doesn't stack up at all. And even Blue Book rejected that in the end. I'm not quite sure now whether this was the end of Project Grudge or the beginning of Blue Book, but I think it was Blue Book. But I do know this: it went down eventually as an unknown in the files. But I bet they were sorry they ever mentioned it.
Yeah. Sneezing here.
It's quite interesting that during the interrogation, well, I suppose you can call it that, interview, debriefing, call it what you want, that they were actually told that they weren't the only ones that seen. So this is not just a 2-pilot sighting. This is multi-witness in the air and on the ground. And some of the witnesses on the ground were very high caliber. One was a general and his wife, I believe. A lot of this would have been lost. Only NICAP actually interviewed some of the witnesses. Blue Book didn't bother.
Yeah,
and I think somewhere on that web page is a link to the NICAP site, and if you want to do some further research on it, then it's there.
Yeah, I haven't heard the word Hynek mentioned yet.
Hynek, he was about then. He was
yeah.
about then, yeah.
Hours. As promised, Major John Sharp and 4 officers from the 7th District Office of Special Investigations arrived at Miami International Airport later that morning. The 2 pilots would be taken to separate rooms and were questioned for almost 2 hours.
Separate.
They would then face a further 30 minutes of questions together.
Pronunciation.
Each pilot could tell the questions had been well prepared and thoroughly thought through. Perhaps even more so considering the incident was barely 12 hours old. However, rather than an attempt to cover up the incident, although off the record, investigators would inform Nash and Fortenberry they had received 7 further reports from members of the public in the same area and time. One of these would come from a high-ranking military officer and his wife, who claimed to see a formation of red disks traveling at high speed. Furthermore, these objects made breakneck directional changes. Corroborating sightings and statements. Despite the information volunteered to the pilots by investigators, Nash and Fortenberry would struggle to find official reports of the other sightings. Some, though, survived courtesy of NICAP, who would record and document several of the reports and
NICAP.
newspaper articles on the evening of
There
July
you go.
14th.
So if anyone wants to look at that link, it's there. I mean, we don't have time to go into it now, but you'll see the other witness statements there.
NICAP, was it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Particular witness would claim that she and a friend were sitting in Stockley Gardens when they saw flying saucers circling overhead and then going north. Perhaps of even more interest is she would claim to have witnessed 7 or 8 of these crafts. Bearing in mind what Nash had said about a connection between the speed of the craft and the lights, it is also interesting that the witness would claim the first 3 saucers were white and the others were yellow and red. As a result of reports such as the one above, not to mention the coverage on the pilots' accounts themselves, an aerodynamicist from NASA Langley facility, Paul Hill, would drive the waterfront nearby on the evening of July 16th. From there, he would sit watching the night sky. Not completely surprised, at a little before 8 p.m., he would witness 2 amber-colored objects appear in the dark sky overhead. At first, the lights were jumping forward of each other. Then, though, they began to move through the skies in a most bizarre fashion.
Here you go.
Yeah, Paul Hill. Anybody out there heard the Paul Hill? He wrote a book. I can't remember the title of the book now. I've got the book, and I'll tell you what, it was too technical for me. He was an aviation engineer, and he was absolutely convinced that UFOs were real because of his own sighting. And he kind of made this formula of how they worked.
All right.
It's an interesting book, but unless you're technically minded, it's difficult to understand.
All right.
But he was a reliable witness, that's for sure.
A formula, you mean like mathematics?
Yeah.
So he was a maths guy, was he? Rather than a physicist?
Yes, he was, yeah.
He
was an engineer, chiefly, I think, but he obviously has a good knowledge of physics as well, if you read the book.
All right. Yeah, so we were talking about some being yellow and orange and some being white now, you see.
But of course, from on the ground, they would have seen them differently, I suppose.
Yeah.
Because the pilots were kind of looking down at them, weren't they?
Yeah.
Who knows?
Fashion. They would begin revolving around an invisible center point, before switching to the vertical plane. Within mere seconds, and much like the sighting of the 2 airline pilots, 2 more objects appeared out of nowhere, and joined the already tight formation. All of them then disappeared into the distance. Perhaps Hill's write-up of the account lends it, and the incident witnessed by Nash and Fortenberry, a little more credibility. A cosmic conversion. Hill would admit in his report that he had gone to see the sightings as a fascinated spectator, but essentially expecting to see something to indicate a rational explanation. However, he would state,
Mr.
"Now they had convinced me.
Again.
At that moment, I realized that here were visitors from another world. It was within my line of business to know that no Earth craft could remotely approach those maneuvers." He would go on to state that there is much truth in the saying it's different when it happens to you. Incidentally, the incident would spark an obsession with studying such reports with a view to explaining how these visitors arrived here from the far reaches of space. His study wouldn't be published until after his death. In it, Hill suggests that UFOs obey, not defy, the laws of physics. It is certainly an interesting notion. As is the fact that Hill, like Nash and Fortenberry, within 2 days of each other, had their view of the world, life, and indeed the universe, completely flipped on their heads. Although they didn't know it at the time, they were not the only ones whose view of the world changed that evening. 2 members of the Ground Observer Corps at Newport News would spot the same lights at the same time. They didn't, however, make a report of the incident until weeks later. 20 UFO reports a day on average in July 1952.
That's quite a lot.
The Nash-Fortenberry incident took place
Yeah,
barely
it's
3
a hell
months
of a lot.
following the start of Project Blue Book. At that time, even before the worldwide UFO wave of 1954, staff working on the Blue Book project, of which there were only 9, were quickly swamped with UFO reports coming in from all over the United States and from a broad cross-section of the community. What's more, many of these reports were coming in from the members of the intelligence departments from air bases around the United States, themselves reporting
Which is
incidents
more
reported to them
interesting.
by members of the public in their respective nearby communities.
Not
By July
MUFON
of
reports.
1952, these reports were numbering 20 a day on average. Furthermore, almost half of these reports did not have ready, rational explanations. By the time
God,
of
they
the
were
famous
golden
UFO
days, weren't they?
incident over Washington, D.C. would appear to put the nation on standby. By the time of the Nash-Fortenberry incident, Project Blue Book was more than swamped, understaffed, and ill-equipped to
1952, that was
seriously
the
deal with the
flyover,
amount of
Washington,
UFO activity
yeah.
taking place.
Washington Lights, yes.
Despite Blue Book staff stating that the notion that the pilots had witnessed 5 military jets was simply not possible, they had no other explanation to offer. Crucially, they had no time or staff to follow up the sighting in a satisfactory manner. Consequently, the case was labeled unknown and then, at least officially, forgotten about. A decade later, however, a Harvard astrophysicist would reinvestigate the incident.
Oh, here we go.
The video below looks at the
Donald
1952
Menzel.
wave. The irrational attempts to find a rational explanation. In 1962, Donald Menzel, the director of the Harvard College Observatory, would re-examine the case.
He's
During the
MJ12
process,
guy,
he
wasn't
would
he?
correspond with Nash for several months in an attempt
Supposedly,
to
yes.
provide a satisfactory explanation. At the time, Nash was working with NICAP as an advisor.
Like it.
It was clear from the outset, however, that Menzel believed the sighting had a natural or rational explanation. Most predominantly, he believed what the 2 pilots had witnessed was simply a reflection in the cockpit windows. This, he would explain, would account for the apparent bizarre reversal of the objects. In fact, he would even point to the fact that neither the crew or the Air Force investigators had failed to even consider this possibility. Then, taking it a stage further, he would appear to suggest that the 2 pilots, Nash and Fortenberry, were simply not credible witnesses.
Yeah,
To
stop
this,
that.
Nash would respond.
End of this.
He would state,
Yep.
Yeah. Well, first he blamed it on comets.
Mm-hmm.
Then he blamed it on temperature inversion. That the lights were on the ground. And they were city lights. Then he said it was a stewardess with a lighted cigarette. The only thing, there was no stewardesses on board. Then he said it was something stuck between the outer screen and the inner screen. The guy was all over the place trying to explain this.
Mm-hmm.
And he basically, in a kind of a nice way, called the pilots incompetent. And they failed to take this into consideration, and they panicked. And these guys had seen action. Both of them were active during the Second World War. They'd had years and years of flying time. But of course, it didn't suit Menzel's narrative, did it?
No.
The guy's just a buffoon.
Mm-hmm.
I think he was a professional debunker. I'm absolutely sure he was. Well, we found out for a fact in the end that he had close ties to the CIA and the NSA. And that says it all, to be honest. He was a slightly more gentleman version of Philip Glass.
Yeah, I just wondering what the maximum altitude of the Douglas. I'm just trying to spot it. Didn't come in the search there. Max, what's that one there? I suppose we have to put Douglas in front. altitude. Did I spell it wrong? Let's see. Douglas. I don't think they go too high because they don't have. Do they have cabin pressure? I don't think they do they? Douglas. These old planes, propeller ones, so they've got to be at a lower altitude. Let's see. Here we go. Cruise speed 246 miles per hour. And high blower at 21,000 feet almost. Is that the maximum range?
Well, Paul, I mean, this isn't too important. What we do know is that the plane was, the DC-4 was actually at 8,000 feet at the time.
Oh, here we go. Scaled down version of prototype.
Its maximum altitude is not important to the case.
Right, it doesn't have a pressurized cabin. So it limits how high it can go up.
Of course it would. Yeah, so you're talking 15,000 feet without a pressurized cabin.
And because they're cruising at 1,000 feet, was it? Or was it 2,000 feet? I forgot now.
8,000 feet, Paul, they were at. That was the altitude, was 8,000 feet. The speed, I don't know.
Was the UFO spotted at 1,000 feet, was it? Maybe something about 1,000 feet.
It came from below.
Yeah.
It travelled underneath them. Well, it wasn't one UFO, it was 8.
Speed. Surface ceiling, here we go. 22,000 feet. That's what I wanted to know. So they're travelling at 8,000, so they had plenty of ceiling to go.
Oh, God, yeah.
Yeah. Maximum range, 4,000 kilometres. That's not a fair, that's pretty good distance for a prop plane, isn't it? So just carry on.
He would state, perhaps understandably bluntly, that his reflection theory simply didn't hold water. Nash would point out that, aside from the objects being in between them and the West, he would state that the objects would need to be persistent, consistent, and impossible reflections to have manifested in 3 cockpit windows in exactly the same way. He would then explain how he and Fortenberry had first witnessed the objects approaching out of the front window before moving across the cockpit and seeing them in the curved portion of the window. By the end of the incident, the pair watched objects disappear from the right side window. He would then finish the letter rebutting the assertion that the pair had been too excited to consider the evidence by stating that pilots do not excite earlier, or they would not be airline pilots. It is a rebuttal that's hard to argue with. No evidence for conditions for temperature inversion. Despite this, though, Menzel would persist with the reflection theory. For example, he would question whether the reflection had, in fact, come from inside the cockpit. Or even more bizarre, from a hostess taking a drag of a cigarette. Regarding this last point, the third person between the two men, Professor Charles Manny from Defiance College, would write in follow-up correspondence, quite a long drag, wouldn't you say? However, even so, there were no hostesses on the flight in question. Furthermore, their cockpit door was closed during the sighting. On these last points, Menzel would concede that the object was unlikely to have come from inside the airplane. Despite this, though, Menzel remained steadfast that what Nash believes he saw was completely consistent with the theory that the discs were immaterial images made of light.
Well, it's not as bad as that religious guy from Martin's show. Anyway.
Jesus, yeah, he was a crank, wasn't he?
Oh, terrible.
Yeah. Put me on. Go back to that image now that we just passed.
That one?
Yeah. Okay. Now put me on full screen and look at this book again, and look at the cover of the book.
Yeah, I noticed it.
Yeah. You see, Menzel kind of stuck his whole reputation on explaining this case, and he made an absolute horlicks of it. And there's some things you just can't explain, and it's just better to just leave them at that. But no.
Yeah.
I guess he slept with the lights on. I have no idea.
Light. With this point in mind, Menzel would suggest such a phenomenon as temperature inversion leading to haze, ice crystals, smoke, or other particles. He would further
Nothing to
state
see
that if a
here,
searchlight
folks.
from
It's
the
all
ground
smoke and
penetrated
mirrors.
this temperature inversion caused
Yeah.
conditions, it would show up as a series of disks.
That's what that
The
religious
movement
guy
of the
was saying.
searchlight would
It's all
then,
in your
Menzel
mind.
claimed, result in the appearance of the movement of the saucers. While the theory would be sound enough, the fact that the conditions of the night in question were perfectly clear, and certainly not anywhere near to causing temperature inversion-related phenomenon. Despite this, Menzel would persist in attempting to manufacture a situation where such an inversion could have taken place. 1. Under the conditions of the night in question. A UFO wave within a UFO wave. What is perhaps interesting is the many sightings that occurred in the days previously and following the incident witnessed by Nash and Fortenberry, including the previously mentioned Washington, D.C. incident. For example, on July 1st near Fort Monmouth, New Jersey, at a little after 9:30 a.m., several objects were picked up on radar. What's more, they were heading towards Washington and displayed a significant burst of speed. The sightings were also confirmed visually. Even more bizarre, several hours later at around noon, a physics professor would see a grayish UFO moving back and forth overhead. The professor would describe the object as dull, gray, smoky-colored, which would move silently in arcs through the sky. Although the sighting was much further west than those over the East Coast, an incident the following evening on the July 2nd in the skies over Tremonton, Utah shares many of the same details. That evening, Delbert Newhouse and his wife would witness 12 to 14 shiny silver objects moving around bizarrely in the night sky.
That's quite a lot.
Furthermore, using his
Yeah.
16mm camera, he managed to capture extensive footage of events as they unfolded. When they viewed these frames, it was clear the objects were shaped like one plate inverted atop another. Even more suspect, Newhouse would hand the film over to the military for analysis. When it was returned to him, the frames showing the anomalous object were missing. On the July 10th, coincidentally,
Always
or
make a
not just
backup.
after 8 p.m., near Quantico, Virginia, the pilot of National Airlines Flight 42 witnessed a very bright amber glow which began climbing until out of sight. 2 nights later in Annapolis, Maryland, William Washburn witnessed and reported 4 large elliptical-shaped objects which moved with great speed before making a 90-degree turn and disappearing into the night sky. Glowing, circular
Those
objects
aliens
all
like
over the United
90-degree
States.
turns, that's for sure.
As well as the already examined Paul Hill incident
high
2 days
speed.
following the Nash-Fortenberry incident, several other UFO sightings would unfold. In the early hours of July 17th, for example, William Stevenson and William Havens would both witness a circular object with an orange and green glow around 5,000 feet high and 10 miles to the north of Lockbourne Air Force Base in Ohio. Around 12 hours later in White Plains, New York, Florence Daly witnessed 2 round objects flying in formation over the skies in the middle of the day at around 3 p.m. The following evening, back over Lockbourne Air Force Base, an amber-colored elliptical object was witnessed overhead. It was noted that it would increase and decrease in brightness while it was visible. On the same day, 2 sightings took place in South
There you
Florida
go.
near Miami.
Change brightness.
Both of an opaque silvery bubble
speeding
flying at a
up and
bizarre
slowing
right
down.
angle against the wind. At just before
Yeah.
10 p.m. later that evening, came another sighting near
Opaque
Patrick Air Force
silver
Base.
bubble.
An
Where we
employee
heard that
witnessed a
before.
series
Hang
of
on, let me
hovering.
just pause that.
Yeah.
Remember the Tic Tac things, and then there was some other new pilots come forward talking about
Yeah.
opaque.
The opaque things, like that, which is basically kind of transparent. It's there, but
Yeah, opaque silvery bubble, which sounds like a sphere, a ball. So they talked about it being a cube inside a sphere, which sounds very similar to this one. This thing back in
Cube.
1950.
What? Oh, hold on a minute. A cube inside the sphere. Hold on. Wasn't that repeated in 2015 with the
Yes. We're talking about here
Roosevelt?
sounds similar back in
Yeah, it does, doesn't it?
1952, or I assume it's 52, this one.
You know, in today's world, you can blame it all on drones. And there was another thing that came up with this case, was like a ping pong ball bouncing off a wall. That sounds very much similar to what the pilots were describing in the Nimitz incident. So you can just blame it all on new tech. I mean, we certainly had nothing like that in 1952. No way. I'm not having it. You know, I know, like I've listened to some of Michael Schratt stuff, where he reckons we made this big breakthrough in 1954 with he believes it could have been anti-gravity. I'm yet to hear. I'm yet to hear of anything like that, and I don't. I mean, look,
He's one of these guys got all these insiders and no evidence.
Yeah. There's 60 odd years on now, and we've still seen no sign of this anti-gravity craft. I mean, what was that SpaceX rocket they launched yesterday? Oh my God, it's just another big dumb old chemical firework, isn't it? You know, a sophisticated one at that. I mean, it was docking with the space station. I think it was supposedly returning today, wasn't it?
Well, I don't know. I haven't been keeping up with that side of stuff. But
yeah. Well,
SpaceX uses
appear now.
Yeah, SpaceX uses a kerosene fuel mixture with oxidants, oxygen, which is normally oxygen and something else, but makes it really combustible. You see,
and likely to go up like a bomb. You wouldn't catch me on one of them, I can tell you.
Yeah, it's definitely got a lot more energy release. That's why they use it, and that's why they can have a smaller rocket and have one return. You see, because they're using kerosene. It's worse for the worse than the space shuttle, which just used hydrogen and oxygen, and then they basically used fusion of chemicals there to release water and energy. But not SpaceX. That's the way he's got around it, is using this kerosene, which is obviously crude oil based. So we've covered that in the past lives, talking about all the different rocket fuels out there. And they were talking about that SpaceX is probably adding to the climate change. But the experts saying there that the rockets don't release enough to really make much of an impact on the size of the planet we're on. So I don't know.
Another thing, before we finish off on this case, that nutter that was on the Willis show.
Yeah.
Did you hear what he said about? I know we disagree on the Chicago incident.
His name was David someone.
Yeah, neither of us believe that actually Zamora actually dug those holes himself. You know, where the landing gear went down.
Oh, right, yeah.
And that's what he was saying. That Zamora faked the whole thing because he couldn't fit it into his own belief system. So he came to the conclusion that Zamora had actually hoaxed the whole incident.
Right.
Oh, good.
I would have thought he would have said it was the kids that did the prank, of anybody, not the cop. Maybe there was kids that were letting off fireworks or something, or dynamite in barrels at the time.
Yeah,
that was one of the theories anyway. They were trying to prank the cop.
I don't think it was anything like that, and I don't think it was. I don't think it was ET either. It sounded too noisy and clinky, but I don't know. I mean, I just don't know. I wasn't there. And at that time, 1964, the military-industrial complex hadn't really kicked in. I think the people at White Sands would have known damn well what it was. I don't know.
Maybe.
That case was a bit of an elephant in the room. But anyway, forget about that case now. We're not on about that.
Yeah. Well, you know, I've done some stuff on it which you didn't agree with, but anyway, carry on.
Yeah.
Hovering and maneuvering red-orange lights moving in a variety of directions. The following day on the July 19th, the day of the famous Washington, D.C. incident, an intensely glowing, non-blinking orange ball of light was witnessed moving
Hello,
at considerable
Charles. How's
speed
it
over
going?
River Edge, New Jersey.
Hi, Charles.
In short, in the weeks leading up to and before the Nash-Fortenberry incident, there was sighting after sighting. All around, circular, glowing objects. That they are not connected is surely unthinkable. A lot of lessons for humanity to learn. There were, of course, other possibilities. None of which, however, Nash and Fortenberry would really give serious consideration to. For example, one suggestion was that what they had seen was a top-secret missiles test. As the pilots state, it simply is not logical that supposedly secret tests would take place over
Missiles don't
populated
turn
areas.
at 90 degrees, though.
Certainly in full view of the public.
Mm.
And in airspace regularly used by commercial, private, and military pilots. They would also assert that, even in secret, such advanced weapons, or more specifically the mechanism that would allow for such lightning and otherworldly movements, would have become public knowledge. Nash 2002. As fair as that last point is, and perhaps correct, it is not beyond the realm of possibility that such technology could remain out of the public domain. With that said, though, the idea that such weapons tests would take place over such highly populated areas, as Nash says, is simply not logical. With that in mind, then, is it possible that as opposed to being weapons, they were experimental crafts?
But not over cities.
After all, they did appear, and make their way up from the ground. Might they have launched from a United States Air Force base? Or even from an unofficial base somewhere in the northeast region of America? However, assuming that these crafts were most definitely under the control of an intelligence from elsewhere in the universe, as Nash and Fortenberry note, mankind has a lot of lessons to learn from somebody. It is certainly a summary that is hard to disagree with. A sudden and sobering realization. Should we accept, then, that the objects, like Nash and Fortenberry believed, are not at all connected to the United States government? Even the black budget aspects of it, then the only real possibility can be to look at extraterrestrial visitors. Either from another world, another realm, or dimension.
Or
We have to
interdimension.
ask, then, what is the purpose of these visits? Incidentally, Bill Fortenberry would pass away in a plane crash in the Pacific Ocean in
Yeah.
1957.
Ah.
Nash, on the other hand, would eventually transfer to Germany, where he would spend 15 years flying the Berlin corridors. He would then retire from Pan American. He wouldn't, however, forget the impact the incident in July 1952 had on his and Fortenberry's lives. Nash would speak years later of the sudden and sobering realization that our world is not alone in the universe. He would continue. We just
Very
knew
good.
that they were not from this planet. I know to this day that it was nothing from this planet. Unless, of course, the conspiracies of secret deals between the United States government, or at least a shadow version of it, and the intelligence behind these sightings in the early 1950s, one that would see advanced technology in exchange for permission to abduct human subjects for experiments turn out to be true.
About that.
That, though, is a subject for another time. Check out the video below. It looks at this most fascinating incident in a little more detail. Disclaimer.
Oh,
The story.
we got to the end. With the Drake equation, it sort of got modified over the years. I reckon there may be lots of life just in our galaxy alone, not the universe. So, let's have a look. Drake equation. I think it used to be like 1 to 10 planets with life on in the whole universe, and now that's changed to possibly thousands of planets with possible life on per galaxy, not universe. Over the years, it sort of got modified.
Well, it's something's unidentified, and I mean, look at that case now. So it's a big leap of faith just because something's unidentified. to say,
Yeah.
you know, it's alien. But on the other hand, if it's not theirs, and it's not theirs, and it's not ours, you know, what does it leave? You know, once you've eliminated the impossible, whatever remains, however improbable, must be the truth.
Here we go. How many planets in our galaxy can support life? In November
Oh, yeah. Well,
2013, astronomers reported, based on Kepler space mission data, that there could be as many as 40 billion Earth-sized planets orbiting in habitable zones, the Goldilocks as they call it, of sun-like
Goldilocks
stars
zone.
and red dwarf
But that's what we consider to be habitable.
Milky Way, 11 billion of which may be orbiting sun-like stars. 40 billion just in our galaxy. So how many galaxies in the universe? So keep that in mind. How
It's infinite,
many
isn't it?
galaxies? So these people think that we're like the only persons alive in the whole universe. I think they're religious or demented or something. How many galaxies in universe? I think I've plugged this in before, but it always gets updated. 100 billion galaxies in the universe. So that's for what we can see and estimate. Times that by 40 billion Earth-like planets per galaxy. What's that work out?
It's infinite.
40. What's that work out? 4 trillion planets in the universe. 4 trillion. Is that correct? Have I got the right figures here? Move one over. Billion. It has to be, doesn't it? 100 billion. Move times it by 40 is 4 trillion planets. So I think some of them would have found their way to us by now, unless we're the first ever planets to have high technology, which I doubt very much. Because that's the other theory, is that we're the only ones really got the leading edge in technology, and the rest of the universe
Yeah,
is
well,
yet to catch up.
that's medieval, isn't it? It's a medieval philosophy, you know, that everything revolved around the Earth. Charles is asking a good question here. G-forces, abductees, how can they withstand the forces when, you know, they're on board these craft? Well, I think obviously they've found. I'm not saying they've defined the laws of physics, but they're obviously manipulating the laws of physics in some way.
Yeah, I actually
think
got
the laws
that wrong.
Of physics will always be there.
I calculated that wrong. It's 4 to the power of 21 planets in the universe that has life. 100 billion times 40 billion, wasn't it? So
yeah, but it only takes one species to get here.
Yeah, and they could have been around for millions of years, billions of years even, and they had plenty of time to send out robots or AI things to locate us, and then send other craft to us. My mouse died on me. Here we go. Got it back again. Yes, it's really mind-boggling when you start to look at stuff like that.
Yeah.
We got another link to go, have we?
Yeah, but before we move to the next link, just some news in ufology recently. TTSA in dire straits financially. Oh my God! You know those £200 per share? They're not even worth $1 now.
Go on with you. Where'd you get that information from?
Doesn't matter. It's a fact. They're not even worth $1. Another thing as well. Chris Mellon, who is the leading guy, as far as I'm concerned, in TTSA, he's on the board now, the advisory board with MUFON, and this has all happened this week. This news has come out, Now, a lot of people are finding that quite disturbing, that Chris Mellon's on the advisory board there.
Mm-hmm.
I can kind of understand why. As I've said this before, and I'll say it again. Every time the UFO community and the intelligence community have met, it's ended in tears.
Mm-hmm.
Nightcap, APRO, the Paul Benowitz affair, Bill Moore, Linda Moulton Howe. It's all gone horribly wrong. Is it a kind of an infiltration? Because MUFON, at the end of the day, are supposed to be a public body, totally independent of everyone. So now there's like a TTSA connection. And let's face it, they're a bunch of spooks, aren't they? So where's the data going?
Yeah.
What do you think, Paul? Chris Mellon, now, when he speaks, I think it's time to listen. You know, the guy seems to be quite serious about getting this UFO topic out. But, you know, what was he? Assistant Director for the Defense Intelligence Agency? I don't know what his exact title was.
Look at that guy from Mountain Show and compare it to people working in Pentagon with the same mindset, you can see the sort of problems we're having. That they believe it's all imaginary and it's nothing to worry about. It's to do with God and demons and all that sort of stuff.
Demons, yeah.
And it's in man's inner evilness, mind's eye, that they're seeing these things, and it's not really a threat.
No, but that's not the topic, Paul. I mean, what do you think about Chris Mellon being on the board at MUFON?
Well, from what I've seen of him so far and what people have said about him, they seem to think that he's not a spook anymore, and he's actually really credible. So, we're still yet to see how that pans out.
He still has a security clearance, and he's still got an NDA.
Has he?
Yes.
You
know, is MUFON stuff going to TTSA now, and is TTA stuff going to MUFON? Are they working together? Because it's all unclear. You know, the waters are kind of muddy here. There's another thing as well. There was FOIA requests to the Army about their relationship with TTSA. You know, with these metamaterials now that they're examining.
Yeah.
And John Greenwald, he filed a request, and they said, "Nah, nothing to see here." So then he termed it in a different way. He's very clever, and that's what he does. You know, he's a document guy. And yeah, they kind of teased him. They said, "Oh, okay, we've got, I think it was 17 pages here of material that you're relating to, as in TTSA and the Army, the contract." They told him, "Yeah, we've got 17 pages here, but you can't have them because they're exempt from FOIA." Interesting, eh? So what exactly is their agreement? I'd love to know. But if it's exempt from FOIA, so I can't see nothing good coming out of this, you know. But TTSA now, I think if this new series, season 2 of what was it called? Unidentified?
When's it due? Do you know?
June.
What?
It was meant to be May, but I don't know if COVID has. Oh God, I mentioned that word again. I don't know if that's put it back a bit. I don't know if that's held it back, but yeah. Apparently, it's this coming month. Where are we now? 31st. So yeah.
Yeah. Yes. But they did say they can hide it in plain sight by giving it to private companies, research companies, which are not under the FOIA request system. So Bigelow, Lockheed Martin, who else are we talking about? SpaceX, probably even. Yeah, if the UFOs are out there, probably surely SpaceX would have spotted something by now, unless somehow they're protecting the airspace before launches, so SpaceX doesn't know about it. But yesterday, someone said they cut the feed as the rocket was landing, and on Twitter, they said, "There's a conspiracy in itself. You know, why cut the feed just as it's about to land on the landing pad?" So yeah, I don't know why they would cut the feed, because I think it's the more interesting part is when they come back down and land, you know, and it's all hasn't exploded and stuff. But apparently, it's not live feed anyway. It's like a minute or whatever it is behind, so they can actually monitor the feed from another command center and then cut it if they need to, in case the cameras film spy satellites or something like that. So they shouldn't be releasing to the public. But yeah, yeah, all this promises from Tim, that investigative journalist guy, has still not come
Tim
forward.
McMillan. Yeah. Well, no, he didn't make any promises. It was the Pentagon that made the promise to address it, and they still haven't done so.
And then you got also what was his name?
The Pentagon
Lewis.
had a history of telling people lies and disinformation. I mean, they eventually, under duress, released those 3 videos like 2.5 years too late, because they were in the public domain anyway, so they had no choice. They denied that OSAP and ATIP had anything to do with UFOs originally. Now they've said they do. I mean, I don't know. Is it just confusion within the Pentagon? Suzanne Goff, isn't it? Or are they deliberately trying to deceive and deny as long as they possibly can? I don't know. There's more to come, you know. There's a crack in that wall now. Just got to keep chipping away.
Yeah. So
anyway, I've left you a link.
And we're going a wee bit down the coast this time. Alabama.
Yeah.
Alabama.
No. No. Wrong case.
That's what it said here for the location.
Oh no, I've given you the wrong link.
Okay, that's alright. We can add another one to the map. What's this one? This is this was meant to be the other pilot case, wasn't it? Were you going to do the UK abduction spree? Oh, where's he gone? Have we got a problem, Houston? What happened there?
Hello, I'm back.
What happened? Why did you drop out? Did you cut and paste in the wrong location, did you?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is the other pilot case, wasn't it? You got here. What was it called?
Yeah, we don't want to do that one now. Don't want to do that one now.
Don't want to do that one now, so you better give us another one then.
No.
Yeah, it's down in Alabama. That looks like the right location. What we got on the map. So what's the next one?
There we go.
UK abduction spree 78, I think it was. Is that the one? I'll leave that tab there because we'll probably come back to it.
I can repost it.
Yep. I might have to scale this one down. Oh no, it's alright, I think. John Day. So this is off into UK now. Whereabouts in UK is it? all over, I guess.
Oh, yeah. There was multiple abductions in 1978, but these are three of the best ones.
Mm-hmm.
I hope the font's okay.
Let's see, can we read it out? Let's see what happens. Where's it going to start?
John Day, the Mann family and Mrs. G. crazy claims? Or a genuine alien abduction spree in England, 1978? By all accounts, 33-year-old John Day was the sort of man who scoffed and mocked the idea of aliens and UFOs. In December 1978, when returning home to Essex with his 29-year-old wife, Susan, and their 3 young children following a visit to Susan's parents in Harold Hill, that would change. Their journey should have taken, as it usually did, 30 minutes. They had set off from Susan's parents at around 9:20 p.m. When they drove up to their home, entered the house, and began to get their children ready for bed, they noticed the clock on their mantel showing 45 minutes after midnight. They couldn't account for 3 hours they had supposedly spent driving home. They felt unsettled and confused, feelings that only increased over the coming days, when the family began to experience strange and intense nightmares about strange large-eyed creatures. The nightmares reached such intensity that the family were scared to go to sleep. Almost against what he would have considered his better judgment, John Day contacted a UFO group who in turn put him in touch with hypnotist Leonard Wilder. John agreed to undergo hypnosis in order to recall the lost 3 hours of his life. Susan, however, stated she didn't want to relive the accounts again. Nor would their 3 children. John, however, after supposedly being conditioned by Wilder to only tell what really happened, revealed a fascinatingly detailed account of the events that took place on their drive home. The wave of alien abductions in England in 1978 are just 3 of many, many thousands over the last 50 years alone. He stated that they had driven into a strange mist that had arrived out of nowhere before noticing a bright light that was following the car. The light then landed in a field adjacent to their route and shot out another beam of light that lifted the car from the road and into what looked like a spaceship. The next thing he recalled was standing in a giant room with 3 tall creatures that were dressed in tight silver-gray one-piece outfits and had a balaclava-type helmet that covered the bottom of their faces. Their eyes were bright pink and had no eyelids.
Weird.
John assumed that they communicated with him telepathically, as he knew what they wanted him to do, as he made his way through a doorway into another room and lay on what looked to be an operating table that was there. A metal arm swung over me, scanning my body, John recalled, before claiming that 3 other creatures then entered the room. These were shorter in height and proceeded to poke at him with pen-like objects.
I've got my pinky up, have I?
John then recalls walking through the ship and noticing how the furniture was all molded to the wall. He even stated he remembered seeing a table with a pile of cubes with magnets on them. They looked like some sort of game. The next thing he knew, he was back in his car, driving on their journey home. Wilder himself, perhaps predictably, perhaps not, stated that he had no doubt that Day was telling him the truth.
How many times have we heard that? All of a sudden, he's back in his car, driving. Betty Barney Hill.
Yeah.
Many, many others. Where we covered one, didn't we, just the other week? Where it was the same scenario. Abducted from the car. I mean, you're not even safe to go out in your car, are you? You know,
no.
Especially in remote areas, and that's where it seems to happen.
Yeah.
There's definitely a pattern to these abductions, you know. No question about it.
But I'm not sure I've heard of pink-eyed aliens before, though.
No, I know they come in. I think quite often they're projecting some kind of an image, you know. People are seeing different. It's not too descriptive. Just carry on with it anyway. Let's hear the witness.
Truth. Although Susan Day refused to be hypnotized, she did talk about her own memory of the incident with John Clare in an interview carried by the News of the World newspaper. She stated that she remembered being covered temporarily in a mauve liquid, and then prodded with pens by several small creatures.
Ah, the liquid
She
again.
stated she screamed before a
Gel
tall being
liquid.
with a balaclava-type hat on put his hand on my forehead.
This sounds like the
After
Brazil
that,
case.
she claimed everything went black. British UFO investigator Barry King was just one of many who examined the Day case. He stated in the same interview, "We have made exhaustive inquiries and are convinced that these two, John and Susan, did indeed have a close encounter of the third kind. Some of their descriptions are very similar to those given in other genuine cases of abduction. We can find no reason to doubt the authenticity of their story." An artist's account of the events described by John Day. The very similar encounter of the Mann family.
It looks like the one we covered a couple of
One
weeks
case that did have
last
very
week,
similar
wasn't it?
details occurred around 6 months earlier
look at
on
that
June
guy.
19, 1978,
Yeah.
when John Mann, his
Werewolf,
wife Gloria,
Dogman.
and his sister Frances, along with their 2 children, were driving home from Reading, Berkshire to Brockworth, Gloucestershire, realized they couldn't account for nearly 2 hours of their journey. They set off at just after 9:30 p.m. and expected to be home around 11 p.m. It was a journey they had made before and knew the route well. A little after 10 p.m., after they had just passed Stanford in the Vale in Oxfordshire, the 3 adults, the children were dozing in the back, all saw a brilliant white light in front of them. They followed it for a mile or so, with the light maintaining its distance. They could see the full moon, so they knew it wasn't that, and all agreed that it was too big to be a star.
So again, the brilliant white light, sometimes white, bluish light, that comes up over and over again in abduction cases, doesn't it?
Yeah, well, blue, red, and white were rotating red-coloured lights normally.
I don't know. A lot of people that believe they've been taken from their bedroom as such say that, you know, the dream was flushed with a white light or a white bluey type of light, and yeah, it's just happened so often. I wish someone would actually do a, you know, scientific study of this.
Well, they probably are, but the information is not public.
It's not privy to us.
No, yeah, all those ERT researchers, right? They'll come out in books eventually, but you have to pay $30.
Well, not necessarily. No.
No,
another thing is 2 hours. 2 hours of missing time. You could maybe, if someone said that it's 15 minutes. Well, you know, you might just have got it wrong, but no, you're not gonna mistake 2 hours gone. You know, that's a scary feeling. It has to be.
Well, yeah, that's true. When you have operation, I don't know how many people out there had operation. When they put you under, when you wake up, you've got missing time for sure, and it feels like you were only just in the operating theatre, and they just brought you back out. So you got all that missing time for sure. So
but you know exactly what's happened, don't you?
Well, they tell us what happened, but we never actually saw it happen. You know what I mean? It's like
you remember them putting. Yeah, but I've been under, Paul, and you remember them putting a needle in, and you remember waking up. So the missing time is perfectly explainable, isn't it?
Yeah, but you can't remember anything that happened in that time, though. It's like you're in a deep sleep for sure.
Well, no, it's probably just as well when someone's poking a scalpel in you.
Yeah, but
that's the whole idea. I mean, what an anesthetic does, it takes you so close to death. You're basically hovering just over death's door. Put it this way: if someone's taking your heart out, cutting your ribs open and taking your damn heart out, you have to be close to death not to feel anything, don't you? I mean, it's an awful thing to contemplate when you actually think about it. But in the case of abductions, I don't think this is the case. Unless, of course, there's a lot of abductions that occur and people just do not remember anything at all. The only ones that we do recall are the ones that have gone a little bit wrong and you actually have a memory.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, you know the date rape drug. Once you've got that, you're gone and can't remember stuff. But you know something happened.
You'll have vague memories, yeah.
Yeah, you drift in and out probably.
I got spiked for that once. I done just about made it home.
You got done with a date rape drug. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, someone put it in my beer. Well, I mean, I presume that's what it was. It had all the symptoms of it.
What kind of club did you go to for getting that? It wasn't a gay club, was it?
Good God, Paul. Stupid.
Well, who would want to date rape you? You know, it's normally the other way around.
No, people have been putting that in people's drinks for a laugh, you know. And then maybe taking their wallet and stuff, you know. But I felt it coming on and I got the hell home, just about.
Well, that's a good way a lot of people die too. People spiking your drinks and stuff. And you end up on the street and dying on the street, right? A lot of kids have been lost that way with those party pills, right?
Yeah, it's not fun.
But I don't know if aliens would.
Know what they're doing.
I don't know if the aliens would use drugs though. That's the thing. And how would they know the knowledge of drugs? So that means they must have been around for a long time to understand information about drugs. Maybe abducting doctors or something like that, or medical people, and learning from them somehow. I don't know. Herbalists. So yeah, better carry on with this one.
John pulled the car over and stepped outside the vehicle in an attempt to see if there was any unusual sounds he could make out. Almost instantly a red light flashed on beside the white light, that was now growing larger as it made its way closer to them. John would later recall he could hear a mixture of a swishing sound and the scoring noise of a train's wheels against the track. His wife screamed at him to get back in the car. "It's going to land," which awoke John from his trance. He sped off away from the light dot after 100 yards or so, though he realized that we're not on the A417 road that they had just been on. They were on a small, windy road with sharp bends that was hemmed in with hedges that he could not see over. John recalled bizarrely that I had this strange feeling that if I had taken my hands off the wheel, the car would have driven itself. They rounded another bend and found themselves suddenly in Farringdon, Gloucestershire, although John could not recall passing the usual "Welcome to Farringdon" sign that he normally would have. They also noticed again the ball of light, although this time it was behind them, keeping pace, but not pursuing them as much as keeping them in sight. Francis recalled later that it would disappear whenever they drove past a group of houses. By the time they had reached the village of Cirencester, it had vanished. Expecting it to be just after 11 p.m., the three adults were shocked to discover it was well after midnight. Frances insisted on driving her own car to her own house in Stroud several miles away, and after the Manns had put their children to bed, John rang RAF Breise Norton to report the UFO. The following day, still very shaken, John tried to locate the twisty, winding road they had driven on the night before, but could not do so. He also attempted to find the field where they had seen the ball of light land before they had taken off at speed. Again he couldn't, and John began to wonder if they had had some kind of group hallucination. However, just as they were beginning to think they had imagined the whole affair, John noticed that he had developed what looked to be heat rash on the lower part of his chest, which was extremely irritable and itchy. When he informed his wife, Gloria, she revealed that she too had similar markings on her left arm and leg. Upon speaking with Frances, she confirmed that she also had developed itchy skin that resembles a heat rash. Perhaps even stranger, all of them had discovered substantial bruising below their right knees, with no idea how it had become bruised. The final straw for the Manns were several disturbing nightmares that their daughter Natasha had over the weeks following the drive home. Back right, Gloria Mann; back left, Francis Mann; middle, John Mann; front left, Tanya Mann; front right, Natasha Mann. Gloria would later recall her daughter told her of the dream, that she could see lots of strange people with funny eyes staring at her, and that someone had taken Mummy and Daddy into another room. When Gloria tried to pry a little more into what happened, Natasha grew increasingly frustrated with her and stated, "You should know. You were there?"
Let's look at that.
Upon hearing these accounts from Natasha,
So there's nobody more perceptive than children. If unusual, she should recall that.
Yeah.
Don't you think? So many common themes in these abductions that becomes quite obvious after you've seen. If you see look into maybe 100 cases, of course, dismiss the ones that you believe to be faked. Because anybody can look back on an abduction case and cherry pick little parts of that case that might fit into their narrative if they were to make up a story. But I honestly believe people actually hoaxing an incident. I think it's far and few between. I think very few people do that. I mean, what do they have to gain? I mean, there's not much chance of making a penny out of your abduction story. There just isn't. Oh, by the way, Earl's book will be out soon. It's not Earl's book, but the chapter on Earl is going to be there.
I thought it was out already.
No, I don't think it is, unless the podcaster seems a little bit was a little bit outdated. But I don't think it was. I only got a notification last night.
Right. Hey,
I can't remember now the author's name. But yeah, you go on with this.
Yeah, I was just checking the video. We haven't actually lost ads at the moment, so we must be being accepted more now by Google.
Even though I mentioned C19.
Yeah. So maybe they're getting less touchy about that word now. Who knows? But anyway, Earl's book. I'm sure he'll be posting it around then on his Facebook page. But he said set up a time, bring him onto the show again to do an update. But I keep telling him, just pop on the side chat anytime, just say you want to drop in on the video and we'll just add him in. And he can have his say on UFO cases as well, couldn't he? Whatever. If he wants to join in, we're pretty much informal here, but he likes a set time, date, blah, 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 and make sure it's just him and all this sort of stuff, I guess. I don't know. But I kind of like people that are respected in the UFO field and have a knowledge of UFOs because they've been doing it for so long. He's been doing it, 16 years now? I think he just had his birthday. So he's getting up there.
I think it's more than that. I think he's been a MUFON investigator for that long, hasn't he? If not longer.
I'm not sure what happened before then. He was interested as a kid.
The book also includes his story with Howard Hughes. Okay, I just found it now, Paul. The book is Philip Kinsella. He's the author of the book.
Right.
That's the guy he's an abductee himself, and that's the one that includes Earl's abduction story and his mother's story with Howard Hughes.
The first book that include that, though, I understand, was Kathleen Marden, whatever her name is.
Kathleen Marden, yeah.
She put the story in the book too.
All of you is.
Yeah, well, she's the is it the niece or the daughter of Betty and Barney Hill?
Yep. She is. She's the head of ERT, isn't she? Extraterrestrial Research Team or whatever it's called. I probably got that wrong, but anyway, I think he's mentioned it before.
Okay. The name of the book is The Grand UFO Deception.
Right.
Philip
Why
Kinsella.
did he include Ill's story in that? There must have been some comparison that he wanted to include it. Was his mother also mentioned about an underground base? Is that maybe it?
No.
I know he was talking to...
but I didn't hear anything like that.
Yeah, I know he was talking to someone that said, yeah, my mum also talked about working in an underground base, and he wanted to know more about the guy because it fit the same timeline. He may have
didn't
known...
mention that in the interview.
Right, yeah, we talk a lot in private. So, yeah, I'm not too sure what he was trying to find. He was trying to get people to come out and talk about stuff, but they're a bit resistant. Maybe because it's classified still, I don't know. People are very secretive when they don't want their names known and all that sort of stuff. I don't know why. So Ill's story, he forgot to mention that the house burnt down after we did an episode on Ill, by the way.
Yeah.
It's called Ill's Mum and the Underground Base. If you haven't watched the interview and the pictures, go and have a look of my first interview. Well, actually, it was almost like my... Yeah, it was not soon after that I started doing live streams. So we got better and better at it. But that was a well-edited episode I put there with extra information on the screen. But yeah. So the more you tell the story, you think, oh, we got to include this information next time because it got missed out last time. And it just gets better and better, you see. But people might get sick of hearing the same story over and over again. That's the only problem. Unless there's new information that comes to light, then it gets a bit more interesting. Where you can verify things, right?
Yeah, well, he's not added to his story, which is fantastic because some people do. I mean, you look at the Rendlesham Forest incident now. There's so many people that seem to have added bits on, and it kind of spoils a really good case, doesn't it? And then you get idiots like Ladry Wadden, Ladry Valaya, that came into the fray, like who probably wasn't even there. He just heard a bunch of rumours and turned it into a book or several books.
Oh, you just wait. You'll be adding in the alien autopsy as well next. Say that you saw it in a box. They saw one of them being transported in a box or something. You know, you never know. These guys just like to keep adding stuff.
Alien autopsy. I mean, there's still people out there that believe that's real. I mean, I don't know how he can help those people. I mean, the mastermind behind it, Spiders Morales, he's actually come out and said, "Look, it's fake. I done it."
Yeah,
and he's told everyone how he done it.
Yeah, but that, everybody, in the UFO world say, well, he's been got to by the men in black and he's changing his story. You know how it's going to go. You're never ever going to convince everybody. It's like Dr. Greer, you can't convince him. And also the other guy, Corey Good,
I was listening to UFO Network News, Frank Stoltz's show. He was on the other day, and he was talking about Stephen Greer's last film, movie, whatever you want to call it.
I thought he wasn't going to do it anymore.
He said there was some parts of it worth listening to, but he said you need a machete to cut through the bullshit to get to the good bits, And I think that was a fair summary of the docu, to be honest.
Right. No, I thought they weren't going to do any more live shows or panels or whatever.
I'm not saying it was a live show. It was just a summary of it was basically keeping up to date on UFO news. Champ wasn't on. It was just Frank. It was a good show. I enjoyed it.
Yeah. Well, better move on with this one.
Mm-hmm.
Natasha, John Mann became convinced that something happened to them on their recent journey, and both he and his sister, Frances, agreed to undergo hypnosis by hypnotherapist Jeffrey McCartney. John recalled once under hypnosis that when he had exited the car, a UFO had landed in front of them about 100 feet off the ground. John began to walk into a strange mist, and then around 8 tall figures,
The mist
dressed
again.
in a tight-fitting silver-gray metallic-looking suit with balaclava-looking
Yeah,
helmets,
fog
walked past
mist.
him and took the 2 women and 3 children from the car. They then all proceeded to walk into a column of light, which seemed to lift them from the ground. They were then in a giant room with several of the tall figures around them. He was taken to another room where he was sat in what resembled a dentist's chair, and had a bright light shone into his face and eyes. He claimed the 2 tall figures were women, and while one examined him closely, another was pressing buttons on a desk to his side. The woman examining him then pulled
Would a
something
UFO
down from the
have
ceiling,
buttons,
and he
so-
blacked out. He recalled when he awoke there was what looked to be a tall man in the room, who spoke to the 2 women in a language he could not understand. The man then addressed him in English. He stated his name was Anuxia, and that no harm would come to any of them. John further recalled that he had inquired if they were on a spaceship, and how was it powered, to which Anuxia replied that they would be prepared to bargain with the ship's technology in exchange for them to live on Earth. He recalled being shown what he could only describe as a film, as if from a pilot's viewpoint, who was flying over a desolate rocky landscape that looked
Not
as
a
though
holo-
it had been
not a
ravaged by war
hologram, then.
or a disaster of some kind. He claimed what he was seeing was a film of Anuxia's people collecting their dead on their home planet. Many UFO witnesses and alien abductees report seeing a bright blue-white light. Frances, hypnotized completely
go.
separately from John, further clarified the film they had seen. After having matched John's account almost identically, until they were split from each other before their examinations. When Frances came to,
suppose we have
she
a
claimed she
farmer
spoke with an
index
explorer
on
pilot
this
called
one.
Uxialia, who had led his people from their home planet of Janos. Like John, Frances
I'm going to
recalled
do a
being
bar
shown a
chart
film
for
that showed
that.
why they had to find a new home.
Bar as in sheep.
There were 3 planets
Bar
on the
chart
screen,
for
Frances
farmer
recalled.
index.
He said they were called
I'll do it
Sarnia,
next week.
Sarton and Janos. Sarton, the one nearest to their sun, came out of its orbit too close to Janos, and began to break up, showering Janos with meteorites. One of these meteorites hit a nuclear power station, and set off a chain reaction which devastated
dear.
their planet. Frances even claimed to have seen a picture of a tall blonde lady, and 2 young children, who were the pilot's wife, son and daughter, all of whom she said he had told her had died on Janos.
Not
Lastly,
too sure
Frances
about
said
this
that those
story,
that could,
but
fled the planet on a huge mothership, and then sent various explorer ships out into space to seek out other planets, and that Earth was a planet they wanted to live on in exchange for technology. Even stranger, both Frances and John made passing comments about being given colorless fizzy drinks before they left the ship. When asked what they were and why they were given them, each replied they were told, "It is to help you forget. You must forget, for you will be exploited."
why fizzy
So
drinks?
was this a wild story that the man's concocted?
Sounds like it to me.
As with the day's experience 6 months later, their case was examined by many doctors and UFO specialists, with most agreeing that the consistency of their statements under hypnosis, made separately and independently of each other, was remarkable, and that most were convinced they were telling the truth. What lent further credence to this belief was the account that Natasha gave, also separately from her father and aunt, who, although not under hypnosis, matched both of their accounts in every detail. If we are assuming for just a moment that these abduction claims were real and authentic, are they the same species of alien? Both were said to be wearing tight-fitting silver-gray one-piece attire, and both were described as having balaclava-type helmets on that covered the bottom of their faces. The accounts
heard that
happened
before.
within 6 months of each other, relatively speaking, in the same area of the country. One of the many alleged alien UFO sightings caught on camera. Real? The encounter of Mrs. G. Lastly, there is the account of a lady, who would only allow herself to be identified as Mrs. G, from Devon, who claimed she was abducted from her back garden as she pegged out washing in February 1978. 4 months before the man's experience and 10 months before the day's. Mrs. G made her claim to Contact UK, one of the largest British UFO investigating organizations. She stated that she had noticed a blue-white light approaching towards her garden in Ermington, Plymouth, until it hovered over her about 100 feet above the ground. Suddenly I was enveloped and rising in a column of light, she told UFO investigators. I saw 3 figures who looked like tall men. Each was dressed with a tight, shiny, metallic-looking suit, and had on what looked like a balaclava. She stated, although no one spoke to her, she was given the impression I would come to no harm, perhaps telepathically. Mrs. G then claimed she was stood back in her garden and felt a sharp blow on the back of my neck.
Nice.
I was stunned but not hurt. Mrs. G found she had been stood in her back garden much longer than she should have been, and the washing was still not pegged on the line. In the following days and weeks she was haunted by strange and intense dreams, which ultimately led her to get in touch with Contact UK. Bernard Dallaire, one of Contact UK's more senior members, said of Mrs. G's case, "We take the report
Shades of
very
Barney
seriously.
Hill, haunted
Her
by
story is
dreams,
very graphic
nightmares."
and fits many other similar reports." Was there a wave of alien abductions in the south of England in 1978? Or are these 3 incidents coincidence? Maybe even just crazy attention-seeking stories? Perhaps the one thing that makes the case for their legitimacy is the descriptions of the creatures, or abductors themselves. It seems strange that the descriptions given were far from the norm of the time, and particularly of their clothing matching right down to the balaclava helmets. If they were fantasy stories made up for attention, the alien figure in the public perception at that time would really be of the gray alien type, and you would expect this to be the descriptions of the abductors if they were fraudulent.
I think it's almost at the end.
You decide.
Yeah.
For a little further viewing, check out the 2 YouTube videos on some of the more credible alien abduction claims.
I think it's finished there. Let's see.
Yeah,
Is
well, we
it,
don't, we don't go touching flaming YouTube again with all the sodding copyright stuff they've been chucking our way.
Yeah. That one looks like a TV show of some kind.
Yeah, exactly. Can't trust, can you? Yeah, so the Barney Hill, do you know what? This abduction business and these people who claim they've been healed and they have these superpowers, they're suddenly an artist or a physicist when they had no prior knowledge to it before the abduction. You know, I think those guys are more likely to be the hoaxers, to be honest, because it just doesn't bode well for most people. I mean, Barney Hill, he died fairly young, you know. He was haunted, to be honest, after that abduction. I think regression in some of these cases is an extremely dangerous step to take, you know.
Yeah.
Because you may be evoking memories. Some of them could be false, some of them could be genuine, that you just can't handle. No, I'd strongly advise anyone who feels they've been abducted to stay well away from regression, unless you're very strong-minded, and even the strongest of us, I still don't think it's the best idea.
Five most believable alien abduction stories. I think, is that in UK? It doesn't say whether it's UK.
No, but another thing about the UK, that this was 1978. Those 3 abductions. Well, that was a choice. It was 3 of them. But apparently there was many more. Remember, in 1980, there was the Alan Godfrey abduction, wasn't there? That was in Yorkshire. And also just a couple of miles away from where he was abducted, you had that Adamski case where he was found on top of a coal pile, seemingly dropped from a height, and of course he was dead. And yeah, they put it down to a heart attack at the end of the day, but no one could explain what that green goo was on his neck, and no one could explain how he got there in the first place.
Yeah, what is this video here? It would be handy to say whether this includes copyrighted material, then we have a good idea. If it's from a news channel or Hollywood, or Bullywood as I call them. But yeah, what's this one talking about here? Are these interviews probably? I'll just start it up and just skim it. Who's that guy? He looks a bit like a beetle. With the hairstyle.
Bugs Bunny.
That looks like an American case there, is it?
Okay, just need to up to the toilet, Paul.
Pascagoula, like looks like it.
The Pascagoula case, yeah, it could be.
I don't think these are all the UK ones, I don't think. Yeah, for some reason I got a coffin fit here. A niggle in my throat all of a sudden. Yeah, something strange happened this morning too. I probably should meet this white cough. Hang on. Oh dear. That might got rid of it now. Oh dear. I've run out of drink too. Yeah, I got up this morning and I was sitting in the kitchen. We got these auto sensor lights in the hallway that light up when it detects body heat. So yeah, it went out and it was out for a while, and I was sitting there drinking a bit of a cup of tea and doing my insulin, and the light come on, and I thought, oh, here comes the dog, right? He's been let out the bedroom, and he didn't show up, and I thought, well, that's strange. The light come on, it stayed on for the normal length of time, then went off. So eventually I got up and went to look in the hallway, and sure enough, as soon as I look around the corner of the door, because it was like half open, and the light come on, and I thought, well, that's strange, there's no one out here. So I walked down the hallway and looked, and it's dead to the world. All the doors are shut. So yeah, what turned on the sensor is a mystery, but I noticed a cool breeze coming through the door when the light went on. So maybe it detected some paranormal activity there. Like a, what do you call it, the EM pod. Yes, yeah, crazy. I wish I had the camera rolling so you could have seen it actually happen, and it always happens when you're not near a camera. It would have been good if I had a camera rolling when it happens, because then it would have been evidence, and I could have just walked there and shown you, look, there's nothing here that can trigger this light, and it doesn't normally come on unless there's a significant temperature and change or movement. I had a similar bulb, older bulb. I replaced it about a month ago because it kept coming on as well and staying on, and I thought, well, that's really strange. There's a spider on the lens or something on the sensor. So I was trying to work it out scientifically whether there was some sort of circuit problem. In the end, I decided to replace it with one of these other more reliable sensor bulbs, which is like 4 watts, and it's quite bright. And of course the problem went away. But then this is the first time I've seen it turn on by itself again. So I did look for spiders or anything running over the sensor that could trigger it maybe. And sure enough, it looked pretty clean, because it fits a bit snug into the ceiling. So there's not actually any gaps for a little spider or anything to build a web on. Compared to the other bulb I had in, which had a little gap around the outside. Yeah, so you're back with us, Robert.
I am.
I was talking about the paranormal this morning that happened to me. I was sitting in the kitchen. No. I was sitting in the kitchen doing my insulin jab and drinking some tea. And the hallway light come on. It's got these LED sensor lights in the ceiling, and they detect fairly long distance, probably 2-3 meters or around the bulb. So we got one in one corner of the hallway, which is like an L shape, and the other one closer to the kitchen door. So I was sitting there and the light come on and I thought, here comes the dog, right? And I thought, oh, normally the dog just pops in when that normally comes on, and nothing happened. And I thought, And I felt this cold breeze pass me by as well, which was strange. And there's no windows or doors open, because I went down the hallway to check, and sure enough, no activity, no one walking around. And I thought that was really strange, and I couldn't work out why the sensor light come on. So I reckon it detected a paranormal activity there.
Yeah, well, that's what you get for debunking stuff, see.
I thought, oh, that's going to be an interesting day ahead with their live stream this morning. See if something else happens, EVP in the microphone or something. But there hasn't been any cold spots in here in the bedroom so far anyway, so that's a good thing. Yeah, I think this is the guy that's talking about these cases. A talking head, so these videos wouldn't have been any good anyway. It's not talking about UK cases, bollocks, but... so, we got to the end of that page there. Was there any more on this particular UK spree?
No. The only thing I wanted to add was that thing in 1980 with Alan Godfrey. I mean, he went into depression and it opened up a whole can of worms for him, didn't it? You can actually find the video of him under hypnosis. It's on YouTube somewhere. On Godfrey, Yorkshire, 1980. And it's absolutely horrible to watch. It really is. The guy's screaming.
Yeah.
So no, if anyone's listening to me and they think they may have had an abduction experience, and they're thinking of going under regression, I highly advise not to do that unless you have a very strong mind. I've left a link for you there, Paul, to this last pilot case. So we're going back to 1948 now.
Was it that one there that already got open? Think about real.
Yeah, this is the one.
Okay,
yeah,
I don't need to cut and paste it then. I was just having a look at the end stuff here. See what was there. Airship sightings of 1897. Of course, it turns out a lot of these were... I think that religious guy brought this one up too, didn't he? On Martin's show. Turned out a lot of them were actually inventors that were working on airships. Steampunk. The Men in Black footage.
I don't know what you're looking at here, Paul. This has got nothing to do with the case.
No, I was just looking at the end of this
okay.
other case that we had.
I've seen Gavin McKinn in there.
Yeah. So, start from the top again. Oh, hang on, it's got a lot of garbage at the top. I wonder if I'll get past it. Let's just try it anyway. Where's the link? There. Wish I'd stick it at the top all the time.
Think about it. Real. UFO and alien sightings by date and location. Menu.
Yeah.
Home.
I thought it might.
Sightings by location. North America. United States. Alabama sighting. 1948.
So
the Chiles-Whitted case. 1948. The Chiles-Whitted case. Last updated on February 23rd, 2019. Think about it. UFO sighting report. Date, July 24th, 1948 BBU. Location, Montgomery, Alabama. Hynek classification, DD. Duration. Shape of objects, disc.
I don't even know that.
Number of witnesses, multiple. Source: Dr. James E. McDonald, U.S. House Hearings, 1968 source.
Good source.
Summary: another one of the famous airline sightings of earlier years is the Chiles-Whitted Eastern Airlines case. An Eastern DC-3 en route from Houston to Atlanta
DC-3
was flying at an
time.
altitude of about 5,000
Mhm.
feet.
That's
Near
older than
Montgomery.
the last one.
The object was some kind of vehicle. They saw no wings or empennage, but both were struck by a pair of rows of windows, or some apparent openings from which there came a bright glow like burning magnesium. Map data copyright 2020 Google. Inegi
where's that
imagery
going?
copyright 2020 NASA. Terametrics.
Where are we going?
Terms of use.
Oh, right up there.
Map.
Go
Satellite.
away.
Full report.
Oh, here we go.
Artist depiction of incident. Another one of the famous airline sightings of earlier years is the Chiles-Whitted Eastern Airlines case, refs. 3, 5G, 10, 23, 24, 25, 26.
I suppose that's page
An
numbers.
Eastern DC-3, en route from Houston to
Yeah.
Atlanta, was flying at an altitude of about 5,000 feet. Near Montgomery at 2:45 a.m. The pilot, Captain
which are
Clarence
now?
S. Chiles, and the co-pilot, John B. Whitted, both of whom now fly jets for Eastern, were experienced flyers. For example, Chiles then had 8,500 hours in the air, and both had wartime military flying duty behind them. I interviewed both Chiles and Whitted earlier this year to
Is this
cross-check
a
the many
ghost
points of
rocket one?
interest in this case. Space precludes a full account of all relevant details. Chiles pointed out to me that they first saw the object coming out of a distant squall line area, which they were just reconnoitering. At first, they thought it was a jet, whose exhaust was somehow accounting for the advancing glow that had first caught their eyes. Coming almost directly at them at nearly their flight altitude, it passed off their starboard wing at a distance on which the two men could not closely agree. One felt it was under 1,000 feet, the other put it at several times that. But both agreed, then and in my 1968 interview, that the object was some kind of vehicle. They saw no wings or empennage, but both were struck by a pair of rows of windows, or some apparent openings from which there came a bright glow like burning magnesium. The object had a pointed nose, and from the nose to the rear along its underside there was a bluish glow. Out of the rear end came an orange-red exhaust, or wake that extended back by about the same distance as the object's length. The two men agreed that its size approximated that of AB-29, though perhaps twice as thick. Their uncertainty as to true distance, of course, renders this only a rough impression. There is uncertainty in the record, and in their respective recollections, as to whether their DC-3 was
I
rocked
think
by
I've covered
something
this
like a
story
wake.
before as well.
Perception of such an effect would have been masked by Chiles' spontaneous reaction of turning the DC-3 off to the left as the object came in on their right. Both saw it pass aft of them, and do an abrupt pull-up, but only Whitted, on the right side, saw the terminal phase in which the object disappeared after a short, but fast vertical ascent. By disappeared, Whitted made clear to me that he meant just that. Earlier interrogations evidently construed this to mean disappeared aloft or into the broken cloud deck that lay above them. Whitted said that was not so. The object vanished instantaneously after its sharp pull-up. This is not an isolated instance of abrupt disappearance. Obviously, I cannot account for such cases.
Yeah, you can stop it there if you like.
Discussion. This
Yeah, I
case has
think
been
I've
the
covered this one. Ghost rocket of 1948, was it?
No, the ghost rockets were 1946. They were over Scandinavia, Paul.
No, I called it the ghost rocket of 1948 because it was a bullet shape.
Yeah, it almost sounds like a rocket of some sort, but whatever it was, it shouldn't have been able to disappear in an
See if I
upwards
can find it.
direction vertically in 1948. There shouldn't have been anything that could do that then.
There are ghost rockets 1948 out the channel. Wonder if it'll come up.
Oh,
I summarized it. Probably it won't come up. No. Didn't even come up in the search. Videos, maybe. Here you go, this one. I think it's the same one. 2 pilots see a ghost rocket. I may be wrong. Let's see, what year was it? Was that the same craft? What year was it? 1948, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. The sighting was 1948,
There
yes.
you go, look, 1948 says on there. I think it's the same case. But it doesn't matter, we can cover it again. I called it Ghost Rock because you can see when they talk about the description that it sort of was shaped like a ghost rocket of 1940s, and could have been another sighting elsewhere outside the other location that they're normally seeing, which was Norway, wasn't it? Sweden, Norway.
Yeah.
1948 Ghost Rocket. Paul's episode. Oh, what's happened there? For some reason it went to on the other screen. Must have pressed on some other part of the keyboard. Are we still running? Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think we're probably going to cover the same thing, but this is a 10-minute summary I did. Wikipedia, images, that sort of thing. And then I did some comparison stuff and said this one is definitely very legit. So there's the 2 guys, I believe. We'll probably see it in your report too. I think that's the wiki page there. Yeah, I'm not too sure why it's not giving me the thumbs. There we go.
It's a good case.
Yeah, it is a really good case, but some people try to explain it as a possible rogue airship, which I don't think so, because because they could actually see people looking back through the rows of windows, right? And that's the 2 separate drawings the pilots did, very similar.
Oh, I don't think they actually seen anybody inside, Paul. I think that's starting to get a little bit away from the truth there.
The other theory was, so there's a DC-3. The altitude they're flying at wasn't that high up, really. For it to be a meteorite, they were saying it was a meteorite, was the main write-off on this one. But we'll go through it. You can always go back and watch my episode. I actually did some looked at the height of the buildings to where the plane was going today. So there's a building, Saudi Arabia, up here, which is where the plane height would have been, at the very top of this building thing. So it's not that high above the ground, really, when they saw the rocket, which writes off comet, meteorite. There's no way would it come in, a comet would come in this way, then skim off and head back out in the atmosphere that low down. Airship, it's possible with some sort of crazy fusion plasma engine pushing it along.
No, dear.
But who were the people inside it? And with 2 rows of windows, it's almost like, sounds like a futuristic
But were they windows?
Vehicle. Could it be
this
like
is 1948? Paul.
Again,
we
it
don't
could
need to.
Be. Yeah, again, it
we
could
don't
be.
Broken the sound drive here.
Yeah, again, it could be a portal where something entered into a world from another universe or planet and then popped back out again. So it could be like their kind of vehicle they use, like we use airplanes. Yeah, but it's a very interesting case indeed. So we'll just carry on with it, I guess. If it will let us. I sure clicked it, didn't I?
Yep. Been the subject of much comment over the years, and rightly so.
I
Menzel,
think you've gone too far.
REF-24, first proposed that this was a mirage, but gave no basis for such an unreasonable interpretation. The large azimuth change of the pilot's line of sight, the lack of any obvious light source to provide a basis for the rather detailed structure of what was seen, the sharp pull-up, and the high flight altitude involved all argue quite strongly against such a casual disposition of the case. In his second book, Menzel, REF-25, shifts to the explanation that they had obviously seen a meteor. A horizontally moving fireball under a cloud deck, at 5,000 feet, exhibiting 2 rows of lights construed by experienced pilots as ports, and finally executing a most non-ballistic 90-degree sharp pull-up, is a strange fireball indeed. Menzel's 1963 explanation is even more objectionable, in that he implies, via a page of side discussion, that the Eastern pilots had seen a fireball from the Delta Aquarid meteor stream. As I have pointed out elsewhere, Ref. 2. The radiant of that stream was well over 90 degrees away from the origin point of the unknown object. Also, bright fireballs are, with only rare exceptions, not typical of meteor streams. The official explanation was shifted recently from unidentified to meteor, following publication of Menzel's 1963 discussion, see REF 20, p.88. Chiles' drawing. Whitted's drawing. Chiles-Whitted drawings. Wingless, cigar-shaped or rocket-shaped objects, some emitting glowing wakes, have been reported by other witnesses. Thus, Air Force Captain Jack Puckett, flying near 4,000 feet over Tampa in AC-47 on August 1, 1946, REF 10, p.23, described seeing a long, cylindrical shape approximately twice the size of AB-29 with luminous portholes, from the aft end of which there came a stream of fire as it flew near his aircraft. Puckett states that he, his co-pilot, Lieutenant H.F. Glass, and the flight engineer also saw it as it came into within an estimated 1,000 yards before veering off. Another somewhat similar airborne sighting, made in January 22, 1956 by TWA flight engineer Robert Mueller at night over New Orleans, is on record, REF 27. Still another similar sighting is the AAL case cited below, Sperry case. Again, over Truckee, in the Pacific, a February 6, 1953, midday sighting by a weather officer involved a bullet-shaped object without wings or tail, REF 7, report number 10. Finally, within an hour's time of the Chiles-Whitted sighting, Air Force ground personnel at Robbins, AFB, Georgia, saw a rocket-like object shoot overhead in a westerly direction, refs. 3, 5, 10, 6. In none of these instances does a meteorological or astronomical explanation suffice to explain the sightings. Atlanta Journal, July 25, 1948. Source, Dr. James E. McDonald, prepared statement on unidentified flying objects, page 42 to 43, hearings, 1968. Previous post. Next post.
What's it doing now?
I don't know, Paul, but I'm sure you've missed a chunk of this case, you know. I don't know where the hell you are now.
No, carried on from where it left off. Full reports. 1,000 feet. I'm pretty sure it carried on from where we stopped it.
I don't think it did, because you went looking for the old episode there, and it's not good. You know, you need to keep it flowing.
I'm pretty sure it carried on. Read that.
I don't think it did.
Off the left wing. I'm pretty sure we covered that. Discussion. The case. That's where it carried on from. Mirage. Blah blah blah. We got there.
So you can see Menzel is in the mix again. Coming up with another ridiculous explanation.
Yeah, about a meteorite or fireball. But yeah, I'm pretty sure we read out all that before.
The object had a pointed nose, and from the nose to the rear along its underside there was a bluish glow. Out of the rear end came an orange-red exhaust, or wake that extended back by about the same distance as the object's length. The two men agreed that its size approximated that of AB-29, though perhaps twice as thick. Their uncertainty as to true distance, of course, renders this only a rough impression. There is uncertainty in the record, and in their respective recollections, as to whether their DC-3 was rocked by something like a wake. Perception of such an effect would have been masked by Chiles' spontaneous reaction of turning the DC-3 off to the left as the object came in on their right. Both saw it pass aft of them and do an abrupt pull-up, but only Whitted, on the right side, saw the terminal phase in which the object disappeared after a short, but fast vertical ascent. By disappeared, Whitted made clear to me that he meant just that. Earlier interrogations evidently construed this to mean disappeared aloft or into the broken cloud deck that lay above them. Whitted said that was not so. The object vanished instantaneously after its sharp pull-up. This is not an isolated instance of abrupt disappearance. Obviously, I cannot account for such cases.
I'm pretty sure we read all that, but anyway.
Yeah, I think
Discussion.
we did that. Yeah, actually,
This
yeah.
case has been the subject of much comment over the years, and rightly so. Menzel, REF 24, first proposed that this was a mirage, but gave no basis for such an unreasonable interpretation. The large azimuth change of the pilot's line of sight, the lack of any obvious light source, to provide a basis for the rather detailed structure of what was seen, the sharp pull-up, and the high flight altitude involved all argue quite strongly against such a casual disposition of the case. In his second book, Menzel, REF 25, shifts to the explanation that they had obviously seen a meteor.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure
A
we just read
horizontally
all that.
moving fireball under a cloud deck,
That
at
doesn't hurt to
5,000
repeat
feet, exhibiting two rows of lights
No,
construed
not
by
at all.
experienced pilots as ports, and finally executing a most non-ballistic 90-degree sharp pull-up, is a strange fireball
90
indeed.
degrees. Yeah, it'd snap it in half.
Menzel's
Of
1963
course it would.
explanation is even more objectionable, in that he implies, via a page of side discussion,
And I've
that
never
the
seen
Eastern
a
pilots had
meteorite or
seen a
fireball
fireball
do a
from a
90-degree
delta-upward
turn.
meteor stream. As I have pointed out elsewhere, REF2, the radiant of that stream was well over 90 degrees away from the origin point of the unknown object. Also, bright fireballs are, with only rare exceptions, not typical of meteor streams. The official explanation was shifted recently from unidentified to meteor, following publication of Menzel.
Yeah, so we're sort of repeating it.
Yeah.
Same pictures that I put in my episode.
The thing is with Menzel, he was so highly respected as an astrophysicist that when he spoke, people just believed him, you know. And the guy's quite obviously clutching at straws, isn't he?
Yep. If anything, it looks like a bullet. You could
Yeah,
even
I
say.
know. We don't know there were windows at all. For sure, they looked like windows. But we don't know they were windows.
Openings, it says, so it could be like heat exhaust or something, you know, or
Yeah.
or inlets for the rocket propel side things. Who knows? But it doesn't sound like a comet if it's got a strange shape like that, and it's got actually openings, right? I think he's got openings there too, hasn't he? Down the middle there. Bit hard to tell. It's not the best of drawings, is it? Or scans, I should say. Devil ship, as they call it, for some reason.
Yeah, Sky Devil ship scares pilots. Air Chief wishes he had one. So it was obviously doing manoeuvres that they couldn't understand.
And of course, 5,000 feet is equivalent to a mile, I think it is, above the ground, which I said was that building equivalent. Somehow, I don't think it could have been something natural that low down and then shoot off 90 degrees back into that upper atmosphere. 5,000 feet to mile. I think I've covered calculations in my episode. There, just under a mile.
Yeah.
which is the altitude that the C-130s drop tanks and jeeps out the back and all that sort of stuff, supplies. It's not that high up. I've got the video clip of that happening in the episode, so if you go back into my link above here, you'll see what I'm talking about. So that DC-3 travels quite low, really, to the ground. A mile up for an airship, I suppose it's possible. Could it be some rogue inventor's airship that he's connected some sort of rocket engine on the end and having to play with? It's possible. Kind of strange, though. Especially getting close to an aircraft where it could go wrong and blow up or whatever. Of course, back then I don't know if they had access to helium. They had hydrogen, because we could make these inventors could make hydrogen from water, you see, but they couldn't make helium. Helium is extracted from porous rock, apparently, from underground, and our reserves of it are actually getting low. All those helium balloons and stuff being released every year. But apparently they found another pocket of it, because they thought they were going to run out in 10 years' time. And they found another pocket, which should keep us going for another 100 years, I think it was. But it's still going to run out. And of course, when you release it into the atmosphere, it's gone. It keeps going up and up and up, out into space. Gradually leaks out into space, and the solar wind takes it away. Because we're constantly moving in space. I know we feel like we're stationary, but not only are we spinning on an axis on a planet at 1,000 miles per hour, but we're also spinning around a sun, and the solar system's spinning around on a solar arm on a galaxy. So we're constantly moving in 3D space, where anything can go wrong. We're certainly not safe by any means by living on a single planet if a human race wants to survive forever. So we need to get off the planet into space. So maybe the SpaceX thing that happened is the first step into getting that reality into progress. So I remember reading my old sci-fi books talking about by now we'd be going to space and we'd have holidays around different planets in the solar system, with space stations orbiting. So you could go to Jupiter and you could get a hotel room on a space station there and see Jupiter and do tours around it and stuff. So maybe that will be in the future generation, but certainly not ours, I don't think. We're too late, too old now. Fascinating stuff, though. What people projected would be in the future, but they seem to be like optimistic, I'd call it. But I think if they put all the funding into the space endeavour, we would have made it quite easily. We would have been doing a lot more in space by now, I'd say, and cure cancer and cure diabetes and heart disease and making food off other planets even, right? So there'd never be a food shortage. So yeah, interesting times ahead, I think, for human, if they don't destroy each other, or the virus at least. Okay, looks like I've been given some lunch here. So you want to carry on with another link to this one or something else?
No, I've got another link to this because I found some additional information on this, which is quite interesting.
Right, is the link posted? I don't see it. I haven't
Yeah,
been keeping up with the side chat too much.
Give me a chance. Give me a chance.
Hindenburg. Yeah, I'm just trying to get it to scroll up. Why is it not scrolling up? I don't want it to go scrolly.
I don't think that was any type of balloon. I honestly don't.
No, airship you mean, or balloon?
Well, yeah, it's still filled with
gas.
It's basically the whole theory of it being a balloon is a load of hot air.
Yeah.
No pun intended, honestly.
Yep, indeed. Yeah, it's a good case. That's why I talked about it myself, even before you showed up on the scene. So, so I have come across it before. Because I was looking into ghost rockets, and I wanted to know whether there's any other reports of them showing up at some time in the future. And there had been a couple of reports. The 1948 was one, sounded very similar to a ghost rocket. And I think there was one in 2015, I think, showed up where a couple said they saw a cigar ghost rocket. But then now we've got the Tic Tacs as well, which happened in 2004. So it makes you wonder.
Yeah, but I mean, what one person's Tic Tac is another person's desk, depending on the angle of viewing.
Okay, so we probably need to read out this one then.
Yeah.
Oh, I grabbed the thing.
Stop
Alien
moving
boy's
the alien
head.
around.
I accidentally grabbed him.
Chiles-Whitted UFO Encounter 1948. The Chiles-Whitted UFO encounter occurred on July 24, 1948, when two American commercial pilots reported that their Douglas DC-3 had nearly collided with a strange torpedo-shaped object flying near them. It was an important UFO sighting for several reasons. It was perhaps the first that occurred at close distance, allegedly within a few hundred feet, and it was reported by two very experienced pilots, Clarence Chiles and John Whitted. Both pilots had been decorated for their service as airmen during World War II, and both were regarded as valuable, respectable employees of Eastern Airlines. Chiles, in particular, was highly esteemed by his peers and by his employer. It was a pivotal case for the personnel of the U.S. Air Force's Project Sign, and was a main reason they championed the extraterrestrial hypothesis as the best explanation for UFOs. Prelude. As the Air Force's official UFO investigation group, Project Sign collected UFO sightings from all over the world. Captain Edward J. Ruppelt, head of Project Blue Book in the early 1950s, wrote, "On July 21, 1948, a curious report was received from the Netherlands. The day before, several persons reported seeing a UFO through high broken clouds over The Hague. The object was rocket-shaped, with 2 rows of windows along the side. It was a poor report, very sketchy and incomplete, and it probably would have been forgotten except that 4 nights later a similar UFO almost collided with an Eastern Airlines DC-3. Encounter. In the early morning hours of July 24, 1948, pilot Clarence Chiles and co-pilot John Whitted were flying an Eastern Airlines Douglas DC-3 from Mobile, Alabama, to Montgomery, at about 5,000 feet in altitude. At about 2:45 a.m., Chiles spotted a hazy red cloud, somewhat similar to aircraft exhaust. It was slightly above them, and to the front right of the DC-3 by about half a mile. Chiles saw an aircraft and, thinking it the source of the exhaust,
UFO
pointed it out to Whitted and said, "Look, here comes a new Army jet job." Story 71. However, they quickly realized that the object was unlike a jet plane and was moving towards them at very high speed. Air Force Captain Edward J. Ruppelt would write that within a matter of seconds, the UFO was now almost on top of them. Chiles racked the DC-3 into a tight left turn. Just as the UFO flashed by about 700 feet to the right, the DC-3 hit turbulent air. Whitted looked back just as the UFO pulled up in a steep climb. Both the pilots had gotten a good look at the UFO and were able to give a good description to the Air Force intelligence people. They had seen the object for about 10 to 15 seconds. Both men described the object as cigar or torpedo-shaped, about 100 feet in length, and about 3 times the diameter of a B-29 bomber. The fuselage was entirely smooth, with no wings, projections or fins. A bright red-orange exhaust was emanating from the object's rear, and was more orange at the outer edges of the exhaust but grew redder when it rose in altitude. The exhaust extended approximately 30 to 50 feet behind the object.
Interesting.
They heard no sound from the object as it sped past the DC-3. Perhaps most intriguingly, the witnesses asserted that the object had what appeared to be 2 rows of rectangular windows. A few weeks after the sighting, Chiles was to write that there were 2 rows of windows, which indicated an upper and lower deck, From inside these windows a very bright light was glowing. Underneath the ship there was a blue glow of light. Clark,
So it could be
182.
inlets that
The
he
light
saw.
from the object was so bright that both men were blinded by its intensity for a few seconds. There were only a few differences in the observations of the two men. Chiles
Doesn't
thought he
make any
observed a
sense.
conical shape at the object's nose that was
No.
somewhat similar to a radar pole, and he described a glassy window at the object's front that was somewhat similar to a cockpit window. Whitted thought the object was slightly further away than Chiles described, and he did not see the cockpit-like windshield, or the radar pole at the object's nose. Chiles recalled the
Radar
exhaust
pole.
as being less intense, and not flaring out as much as Whitted observed. Given the early hour of the flight, most of the passengers were asleep. One of them, Clarence
bit of a
L.
shame.
McElvey, would later offer corroborative eyewitness testimony. He asserted that he saw an extraordinarily bright light from his window seat in the aircraft, describing it as unlike lightning. He later told Project Sign investigators that the light seemed to have moved parallel to the plane, but at a higher altitude. Within seconds of the close encounter, Chiles asked Eastern Airlines flight controllers, via two-way radio, if any known experimental aircraft were being flown in the region.
Pause it.
There was none.
Yeah.
Aftermath and publicity.
Yeah, so Project Sign was the forerunner to Project Dredge, and Project Dredge was the forerunner to Blue Book. Project Sign was very open, as in it was open-minded in its approach. Unfortunately, after I think it was 18 months or 2 years of investigation, they came to the conclusion that UFOs are real and probably of interplanetary origin. That was their conclusion. Now, this made its way up to the chain of command when it made its way to Dwight Vandenberg, who said, "Don't give me this garbage until you have a piece of one." And ordered all copies destroyed. But it was too late. So many people had seen it going up that chain of command. One of them was Hynek as well.
Right.
And of course, they all recalled what was actually said in the report. They sacked the whole staff, introduced new people who were all skeptics. So you can see where Blue Book is going now, can't you? It was a dog and pony show. There's no other way to put it.
Cover up.
But this was, yeah, of course, yeah. Well, that's all Blue Book was, a public relations exercise, to be honest.
Yeah.
I mean, they honestly believe that, Vandenberg did honestly believe that the aliens are going to hand themselves in, give them a piece of the craft. Well, no, we should have taken notice, but of course, he didn't want to hear it. They can't get here. It can't be, so it's not. Which is a huge oversight. But that's the way the UFO topic has been going for 70 odd years now.
Yep.
Aftermath and publicity.
Publicity. The flight landed at Birmingham a little before 4 o'clock a.m. The pilots went to a hotel, only to learn that their sighting had already generated some interest. Within a few hours, they were interviewed at radio station WCON, and also by newspaper reporter William Key. The UFO report earned national press attention. People had quickly suggested that the object had been a meteor, but the pilots both flatly rejected this. They had both seen
Bullshit.
many meteors in their careers, and this object was certainly not a meteor. On the contrary, they insisted that the flying fuselage they had observed was a man-made thing. Clark, 182, within days, sign investigators interviewed eyewitnesses Chiles-Whitted and McElvey. Other witnesses. In addition to the report from The Hague, sign investigators discovered several eyewitnesses who seemed to have seen the same object Chiles and Whitted observed. One of the witnesses was Walter Massey, a ground crew chief at Robins Air Force Base in Georgia, about 150 miles from Montgomery. He claimed to have seen a very similar object about an hour before Chiles and Whitted's encounter. Like the pilots, he said it was a cylindrical object that seemed to be 2 or 3 times larger than AB-29, with a long stream of fire coming out the tail end. I noticed a faint glow on the belly of the wingless object. Clark, 182, Massey was certain the object was not a meteor. Ruppelt also writes of another Air Force witness.
Someone backs up their story then.
A few days later, another report from the night of July 24th came in. A pilot, flying near the Virginia/North Carolina state line, reported that he had seen a bright shooting star in the direction of Montgomery, Alabama, at about the exact time the Eastern Airlines
That
DC-3
sounds like a
was
meteorite
buzzed.
shower there.
Explanations. The Pentagon first suggested that the men had seen a weather balloon, but this explanation was quickly withdrawn. Within days, an Air Force spokesman admitted the sighting was credible, further stating, "This country has no plane resembling a double-decked, jet-propelled, wingless transport shooting a 40-foot flame out of its back end." Clark, 182, astronomer Dr. J. Allen Hynek, a consultant to SIGN, argued that if the pilots had reported accurately what they'd seen, that no astronomical explanation was even remotely plausible.
Yep.
However, he did offer an admittedly far-fetched explanation, suggesting that the pilots had seen an extraordinary meteor. Clark, 183, the men of Project SIGN, however, had their own ideas. Ruppelt wrote, "According to the old-timers at ATIC, this report shook them worse than the Mantell incident. This was the first time 2 reliable sources had been really close enough to anything resembling a UFO to get a good look and live to tell about it. Weeks earlier, Mantell had died in pursuit of a UFO. SIGN's personnel were very intrigued by the Chiles-Whitted report. They knew that rockets could fly, but there was no known technology that could account for a rocket being as maneuverable as the pilots had asserted. They pored through obscure technical journals, including the work of German engineer Ludwig Prandtl, and eventually concluded that a flying fuselage was feasible if the object had a power source that used nuclear energy. Based on this and other UFO cases, SIGN's personnel began to favor the extraterrestrial hypothesis.
SpaceX engine.
Though there was no direct physical evidence, they thought that there was simply no earthly technology that could account for some UFO sightings.
I agree.
They allegedly wrote the estimate of the situation to argue their case. The document was gradually forwarded to the highest authorities in the Air Force, who rejected it, primarily because of a lack of physical proof. The estimate was ordered destroyed, and no copies are known to survive. However, SIGN's personnel refused to abandon the interplanetary hypothesis, even when explicitly ordered to do so. Due to conflicts with anti-saucer elements in the U.S. military, SIGN was dismantled and replaced with Project Grudge, which conducted little to no research and which tended towards debunking of any UFO reports. Hynek's meteor explanation became the official Air Force explanation for the Chiles-Whitted incident, though his qualification was not mentioned in later discussion of the sighting.
Meteorite. Don't think so.
No comments. Post a comment.
No comment.
So now you can see now when Hynek came out the closet, so to speak, and became a believer, why people still didn't trust him.
No.
You know, when he was putting out shite like that.
Yeah.
They never trusted him. They didn't know what ties he had with the Air Force. Astro certainly didn't trust him. NICAP did a little bit more. It was for a lot of people. A lot of people see Hynek as, one of these true heroes of ufology. the actual, if you look into the history of it, it wasn't quite like that. You know, all that crap he came up with about swamp gas. A lot of people in ufology, the UFO community, never forgave him for that. You know, didn't matter how hard he tried. And of course, he went with he was a skeptic to the end in a way. Even when he was a believer, he still didn't believe they actually came from outer space. He actually started going with Jacques Vallée's interpretation of the phenomena, as in it's something far more complicated. And okay, I agree with that. I like Vallée's work, but I don't agree with Vallée's work. You know, if you look at his stuff, Passport to Magonia and the Invisible College, stuff like that. Yeah, sure, it's interesting. But, you know, he tries to relate things, you know, like the incubus, succubus, night paralysis, that, you know, goes back tales to the Middle Ages. He's trying to relate that to modern day abductions, and I'm not sure. For me, it doesn't work. It's good. It's good, and it's interesting, and, you know, I'd recommend anyone reading it, but for me, it just doesn't fit.
Yeah.
Doesn't stack up. It's because as a scientist, they can't get here, so they're not here. It's something else. Maybe they found a way of getting here. I don't know. I was going to bring up as well. Skyhub, Paul. Have you heard of
What?
Skyhub?
Skyhub? How do you spell it?
Skyhub.
As in H-U-B? Hub? Skyhub?
H-U-B. Yeah.
Seems to ring a bell. Let me just have a look.
Yeah, with that, I'll give you the brief synopsis on what it's about. It's like a global network of I'm not really sure how much it's going to cost for me to partake. I don't have the technical prowess to do it myself. Yeah, okay.
So it's a travel company here, is it?
No, it's not a travel
So
company.
it can't be that one. Professionals in the field of travel and tourism.
Okay, I tell you, I've got a quick description of it. It's a worldwide public search for UAPs using a global network of machine learning, smart cameras, and sensor arrays built by you with our open source software. So I take it you have to dish out for the camera, whatever it is, and then they tell you how to put it together using the open source software. And then you're part of that global network then. I tell you, they've already captured some interesting images, especially one which is unexplained, which has been doing the rounds. I'll send it to you later.
Oh, right. So the
I'll send it to everyone now.
They're using everybody's home security cameras to track objects. Is that what you're saying?
No, I think it's a bit more than that.
Yeah. Or do they actually provide the cameras? Do you actually buy the cameras and hook it into?
I think and then you use their software to put it together. So it's
and then it suddenly tracks objects as soon as it detects them in the sky. So if everybody had this around the street,
yeah, and they've got I got an invite. I'll tell you, it's from Gary Bouvis. You know the Nimitz witness, the radar guy.
Oh, right.
I got an invite from him.
All right. That was on
Bulletin's
page, was it?
No.
No.
No. I'm Facebook friends with him, so he sent me an invite.
All right. Yeah, I don't normally do personal connect with all the UFO people on my page. I sort of want to keep that sort of separate, really. I only put a few people on there.
There's the video, and you'll actually see it do a couple of 90-degree turns there before it gets the hell out of Dodge.
Yep. I think
It's
eventually the
and
government
it's
can't
got that
deny.
fisheye camera, which is a bit annoying.
Yeah, if everybody had cameras and all hooked into a global network, I think we'd get a lot of more information. What's going on here? That's a video, is it? Oh, sticks that crap on the front. Is it a copyright strike? So what's this? Houston, Texas Sky Hub.
Mm-hmm.
Is it safe to play?
Well, it should be.
Yeah, I've heard that should be before.
Yeah, I don't know, Paul. I am getting you into trouble, okay?
It's only 2 minutes, but still. They get us for 20-second clips out there, don't they? So what are we looking at here? Did they explain it? So there's no sound. So what are we looking at exactly? They need to explain it, really.
Well, it's a fisheye lens, isn't it?
Is it from one camera, or is it combined footage, or what are we looking at? You know, that's what I'm talking about.
I don't know.
It looks like the sky or cloud cover here, is it?
Yeah.
Stars, maybe?
I wish it could have been a flat screen.
It looks like we've got some lightning happening over here.
Yeah.
Lightning, I think. Under the cloud
But you'll
cover.
see an object that's blinking. It's blinking in and out.
Yeah, but is it a plane? Does the software rule out planes? Does it integrate into flight radar?
They've got lots of PhDs on their board, like, you know.
Oh, here we go. Comes an object. Whether it's a plane, I don't know.
I think that's a meteor.
Uh-huh. Sort of bending around, but of course it's a fisheye lens. That's sort of misleading. You sure it was a meteorite? Could have easily been a plane, that one.
Well, that's what the experts say.
Whereabouts does the right angle thing turn then?
It's cool, like.
Where's it coming up? I haven't seen it.
You'll see it blinking shortly.
Must be at the end of the video then. Where are you, UFO? Doesn't look very interesting. At the end of the video, it must have been that one that covers the screen, surely. Earlier. No, there's nothing there, Robert. Unless it was that one we thought was a plane. There was nothing there.
Yeah.
Are you sure this is the right video?
Yeah, it is. It's at like 2 o'clock on the fisheye.
We saw an object coming. Here it is. This one here. Looks like
Yeah.
it's speeding up though. Quite a lot of speed up there. But it looks like it's blinking. And where does it disappear under the cloud cover? So I don't know. That looks kind of look like a plane to me, you know. But who knows? No explanation on the video. It's not like it's sort of analysed. What are the flashes on the right? Well, that's obviously a storm, mate.
Yeah.
Lightning, yeah. Interesting. That's what I thought. The camera is on the high-rise building near downtown Houston, Texas. Is someone flying something so high over the buildings at night that they appear as a single pixel? Not to mention they maintain a single pixel without wearing off. Well, I'm not too sure how to interpret it really. He didn't say it was a UFO. So that little dot went off here into the cloud.
No, fair play. They're not saying it's a UFO either. They just can't explain it so far.
Sky Hub, right? Perhaps they've got something better on there. Oh, they haven't got too many videos, so. And he's taken away the video tab. Why would you do that? I didn't actually know.
Yeah. Joe was saying something pops up in the middle.
Level adjusted. He's only got one video up there. Same one, by the looks of it. Adjusting the level. Okay. Skylab. Sounds something from Terminator, doesn't it? So we probably should wrap up there. I think you had some more stuff to show though, didn't you? I'll have to wait next time, maybe.
No. Yeah, I did have another case, but we'll leave that till to New Zealand case, to be honest.
Alright. Okay, what else have we got? Sky Hub, I'm pretty sure that's for TV, not the camera that you're talking about here. Because it's called Sky Cable TV, you see. So they call it Sky Hub as well.
You're looking at the wrong thing. That's a router you've got there, Paul.
A router, yes. Well, it's actually a TV box. But I thought that was actually the device that you plug your cameras into and aim it at the sky. But obviously not.
It could have been, couldn't it?
It could have been, but then I realised, oh yeah, Sky is actually a cable TV that we have in New Zealand. Yep. I suppose you have to type in UFO or something. Sky Hub, UFO maybe? Community? Is that community of UFO people or what? Or are they more like studying the stars and stuff?
Well, I'll give you an invite to
yeah, I can't overload what I'm doing. I wouldn't have time to actually follow along what they've got actually. But you may, other people might be interested in joining what they're doing. That looks like the Starlink satellite they're captured on it, is it?
Yeah, they've got a Facebook group now, and it's got a lot of good people on board. You know, a few PhDs in there, I believe.
I think that's...
It's about time something was doing something like this, you know.
I think that might be it there, the Sky Hub. And they used it on that TV show. What was it called? Josh Gates. What was it called? Expedition X. The one episode was about UFOs and Adam, and they put one of these around Mount Adam, and they caught something on it, and it said it was an unidentified object. So I'm not too sure how it worked that out. Somehow it's meant to have some AI in it to work out the flight characteristics, whether it's a drone, whether it's tilting, that sort of stuff, and it sort of predicts that it's something that needs to be more attention to it. Also, it plugs into the internet and flight radar, I believe, as well, and it can overlay planes on the same scene and know whether it's any known plane with cool ID. But it still doesn't mean that it's not military plane or military drone, which can turn off all that information. But then again, it's based on flight characteristics, right? Yeah, I'm going to watch the episode on Expedition X. I've talked about it before, but this guy brings out the pod. I can't remember what his name was now. But anyway, it can only get better, I guess. Better technology, full spectrum sensors for temperature. I think it has all this.
Time someone set up a global network like this, to be honest.
Yeah, that you actually buy the pods and stick it. You need to stick
I do
out.
remember the equipment's going to cost around £1,500.
Yeah, but you need someone to stick up on the roof above all the other.
Yeah, exactly.
Trees and stuff.
So I have someone do that for me.
It needs to be high up or on a post, which is not so easy to organise.
Yeah, and somewhere with no light pollution or as little light pollution as possible.
Yeah. Oh well. I suppose apart from that, we got anything else we want to talk about? We probably could start wrapping up for tonight. We've done 3 hours.
Yeah.
Now.
Yep.
Hey, we got 13 likes. That's something.
Yeah.
And I don't think we got any side haters in the thing today. That's always a plus.
No. Yeah, as always.
Yeah. So yeah, we cover this in a bit more detail than you would get on a TV show, and that's why it's so long. We go over the full reports, although we could make it longer if you want to go into the NICAP documents there and read out what they said about each case. Yeah, maybe if you could find the interviews of the people, we could play them as well for each of those cases. But of course, we got this copy.
Can we?
Well, we can
do that.
We can take a risk and see if we get a copyright claim. Nonsense. Depends if it's on a TV show or not, you know. But yeah, maybe you need some more current ones where there's a lot of CNN or Fox News, that type of things that you can add in to the UFO case. But it seems that most of the good cases are all old ones, right? 1950s, 60s, 70s. And then it gets a bit more...
The only thing is, Paul, something could happen today, 2020.
Yeah.
And it could be 2015, 2017. Sorry, it could be 2037 before it actually leaks out and people start looking at the case, you know?
Hey, countryman, how's it going?
Look at the Nimitz encounter now. That was in 2004. It didn't actually break until 2017, did it?
Yep.
So what happens today, we'll probably find out about in several years. It's a shame. And of course, you know, the likes of MUFON, they tend to harbour their reports until, you know, they're ready to release them, and it's not good unless shown. You know, it should be available for public consumption and analysis immediately.
Yeah.
But it doesn't work that way, and they've got no competition, have they?
Yep.
As I was saying, this thing with Chris Mellor now is a little bit dubious.
Well, they said they're going to release some new footage, which is meant to be better than the last 3. So...
Well, we just have to wait until Unidentified Series 2, won't we? And see what they've got there.
You reckon they'll
I think they better have something good, because financially they're spiraling out of control.
So you say, but
No, that's a fact.
well, let's
That's a
see.
fact.
How many investors did they have? I'm sure they had like $3 million. You can't burn through that sum of money in how many years is it?
Well, I don't know. Maybe
2 years?
Mellon can put him. He's a banking family, isn't he? He's a billionaire. Maybe he should put in some of his own money.
You know, maybe
But
they invested it into shares, which collapsed with the C-19. You see,
Mhm.
maybe that's where it went wrong. But it
Yeah.
might bounce. It bounce back. They just have to hang on to the stuff. It'll bounce back again, just like all
But
shares and stock.
they were in financial trouble the first year, you know.
And I think that was some misinformation. Because they had so many shares to sell, right, and they only sold about 40% of them because they expected a lot more people to buy the shares, so it ended up being on the books as a loss, even though it's not a loss. They only sold. You know, you say you're going to only do like Bitcoin, only do 1 million shares, and only half of them sold. That means you still got half to go, so it'll show up on the books as a debt. So that thing that went around saying that they're at a loss and running in debt was actually fake news. But I think the current thing you're talking about is probably because the value of the shares have dropped because it's invested into the bank system, and of course the C-19's affected everything. So yeah, it's not. It's you know, banks and investors, if they've got all that sum of money to try and increase it for the business, they can also lose it. Because I used to buy
Listen,
shares.
there's no question about it. They're in trouble financially. There's no question about that. It's just coming from good sources, and
Yeah.
it's pretty much common knowledge.
Yeah. So what do you think this video footage they've got will be when they leak it out? Would you think it'll be
What footage are you talking about now?
well, didn't he say to Black Vault that they got some better footage and it's coming? And that was like a couple of months ago now, and it still hasn't come.
Well, hold on. They've been saying there was another 12 videos out there that they were going to release, and that was in early 2018. They said that, I believe. There was more to come.
No, I'm just talking about the recent
they haven't delivered,
Black
have they? TTSA have not delivered.
Yeah,
I mean,
maybe they're just waiting for the. Maybe they're just waiting for the right moment.
Before we like kick them to death completely, you have to understand this. TTSA have achieved more than APRO, NICAP, MUFON, CUFOS, every other organisation and every civilian researcher put together. They've achieved more in 2 years. So you have to give them a little bit of credit where it's due. I mean, for them to... Can you hear me, Paul? Are you still there?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Okay, you seem to drop out for a minute there.
Did I? Okay.
Yeah. It just went stone quiet. So I don't know why everyone's on their back as much as they are. The only thing is, civilian researchers have been saying the same things they have for donkey's years. What they're doing, TTSA, is they're controlling the narrative, and they seem to have this thing about threats. They're pushing that all the time. This threat thing. Well, they've been here for a long time and haven't done any. They haven't done any obvious harm. But then again, you look at abductions and so forth, and you know it's without consent. So I don't know. But no. As far as getting things recognised in the mainstream is concerned, TTSA have done more for ufology than anybody else ever has in such a short period of time as well. So you know, let's see what else they have to offer. But as I was saying earlier, about this contract they have with the army. John Greenwald tried to summon him on that one, and exempt from FOIA. So what's going on? It's like smoke and mirrors, isn't it? It's that's not good either. And now they're teamed up with MUFON, which is supposed to be a public organization. I don't know where this is going. I really don't know where this is going, but I can understand people being quite skeptical about it. And of course, if TTSA lose Chris Mellon, that's the best asset. And of course, being I don't know, whatever he was in the DIA, second in command. I guess maybe the best reports would be going to the DIA and not for public consumption.
The good and bad and ugly. This webpage's scroll is crazy. I reckon 2020 is the year, so we're still waiting. Slowly in progress. Tom DeLonge suggested 3 to 5 years for Congress hearings who are getting teased into social media to both.
Well, Tom DeLonge does a lot of things, doesn't he? He says an awful lot of things. He tweets things and he deletes them 5 minutes later.
Season 2 will bring more data. I suppose it'll be mostly about metamaterials, I guess. UAP materials. Yep. If we're lucky, more pilot data. Something weird does seem to be up with any future release of UAP videos. TSA has a lot more videos, but without the official acknowledgement of DOD that they mean little. Unless someone goes rogue and starts releasing it. Who did it? Shut down TSA. See, this is crazy scroll on this page. Trying to do it slowly, but it's not doing it. I have to use that. 2020 will tell us a few things for certain. If we experience more pushback from the Pentagon, that means that congressional initiative was ineffective.
Yeah. And UFO dogma will continue, and we all walk backwards towards 1994. Why 94?
Back to the Future. I don't know. Is that when the movie was come out?
No, I don't got anything to do with that, Paul.
More data is forthcoming and official UAP associated acknowledgement from the Navy, Air Force, Army. American Congress has done its job and kept the public updated without jeopardizing national security. At the moment, they're more worried about C-19 and rats. Prediction-wise, I have no idea what's going to happen.
It's interesting the Pentagon actually released those 3 videos officially. The same ones that have been in the public domain for over 2 years. They kind of released that in the middle of this virus, if I can say that. Which is kind of a nice way to slip it in. Because no one's really taking any notice.
Yep. Those videos were a bit sad, I thought, in the end. Blobs, I thought we were going to finally get some silver object on HD video given by the US government.
I don't know, but I'm sure there's. I'm absolutely certain at this stage that there's factions within these agencies. Some want it out and some don't. I think it's always been like that, I remember Kehoe in his heyday, Donald Kehoe, NICAP.
Yeah.
was a lot of there was a lot of people coming to him and saying, "Look, this has happened, that's happened," and he was putting it out publicly then, without dropping names, and the CIA and the Pentagon, if you like, were running around all over the place trying to find out where the hell he got these leaks from, you know, because they had to answer to it.
Mm.
That's
right.
another thing about Kehoe as well and NICAP. If they found anything, boom, it was straight out there.
Yeah.
Unlike MUFON.
Yeah.
And when I my distrust and dislike of MUFON that does not transpire to the people like Earl, the investigators that are on the ground, feet on the ground investigators, who aren't getting paid a penny, not even their flaming expenses are being paid. Absolute disgrace, because they're bringing in more than enough money.
Mm.
And the few people that are getting paid that are on the board, they're getting paid bloody well.
He's on the
Really,
star
really
team,
well.
but I've not heard him being sent off anywhere to investigate a UFO crash or anything like that, unless he's keeping it secret. Star team is where they get a phone call, pack your bags, get on a plane with the rest of the people, head down to Mexico or whatever. Don't know if that's going to be starting happening with C-19 and all the clampdown going on. So this looks like an interview here between Lewis and someone else. It's a huge win for American people that we can now have a conversation about UAPs. Well, we've been talking about it for years.
Yeah. Look, DeLong is full of shit, isn't he? I mean, for God's sake,
I think this is Lewis, not DeLong, interviewing.
Who?
Louis Elizondo.
Louise.
Louise.
Alessandro, yeah. Okay, Alessandro. Yeah, yeah, I don't know. He's worth listening to, but I think of all the people worth listening to on that board is Chris Mellon. So you could say in a way he's an asset to MUFON, but you can also understand at the same time that people are always going to be a little bit suspicious about him being there.
They didn't put Trump in. Unless they didn't put Trump in there, the president of the United States. Did actually Trump say that, did they? He said it's a hell of a video. I thought he wasn't impressed with it himself.
Well, I think the most important thing that came up there was that Trump actually admitted he was briefed on the UFO subject. Yeah, that's quite significant that he actually admitted that. I don't think any other president has said that in a long, long time now. Now we know Truman was. I think most presidents that have taken an interest have been briefed on it. You know. I think since Eisenhower, I don't think any president has had complete access to UFO materials, because the best way to hide anything is to take it out of government oversight, put it in private industry, military industrial complex. And then of course it's yeah, sure, you can go to the head of the CIA and say, right, okay, I want to know everything about UFOs, and he can say there's nothing to see. Well, the president is in complete control of that. He can just sack him and then go to the next in line and say, right, tell me. But if it's taken into private industry, there's no way he's getting to that. It don't matter who he sacks.
Yeah.
It's like the president knocking on my door. I don't have to let him in. Just because he's
True.
Donald Trump.
True.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I'm not an employee of his.
Mm.
This is how he keeps secrets, you see.
Mm.
It's not that
Yeah.
difficult.
Yeah. I haven't thought about that before, but yeah, that makes sense.
Yep.
Yeah. And the documents, of course, private company documents, bugger off, you can't have a look.
Mm-hmm.
So, do you think Bigelow knows a lot more than he's saying?
Dan, do you know what, yeah? Bigelow's deceptive little bastard, you know. I don't trust that guy as far as I can throw him. I honest to God, I don't trust him.
No.
I think he knows plenty, and he's not sharing it.
Well, he brought up a lot of UFO reports, didn't he? So, he's going to have some interesting stuff there, I'd say. Because if you got money to buy it off people, they're going to hand it over, I think. I'll give you $1 million for all you know on that particular UFO case. Yes. So I suppose we better wrap it up there, unless there's anything else you want to talk about.
I'm knackered.
And people on the side chat, probably, I think, retracted a comment there, so that sounds
No,
almost...
he's just probably that's probably just a typo, and he's taking the message back.
Yeah.
I've done that myself a few times.
Oh, yeah, I've got lots of typos.
Don't get paranoid, Paul.
I think people remove comments when they make a mistake, though, because you can't edit it, unfortunately. But yeah, I suppose we better wrap up now, actually.
Yeah.
Shut down that. Any questions on the side for the last minute? Say it now, or forever hold your peace. Game over, man. It's been a fairly good night, I think. It's been trouble-free mostly. CPU's been behaving.
Day for me.
I think those extra switches that you did on your Jitsi actually gave us back some CPU there, Robert, so we'll have to keep on doing that.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I'm going to have to bookmark this one now.
Alright. Yep. Okay.
I'll do it now so I don't forget.
Well, make sure it's got the things on the end. Should have equals true as the last thing on the end. A war zone. Yeah, too busy fighting each other or setting buildings on fire so you can't buy your shopping next week. Your supplies. I don't know, it's just crazy. They're saying that they won't mention on mainstream media, as they call it, that it's actually a protest, but it's actually a right when you start setting things on fire and burning people's property. And of course the National Guard have been told to step down too. So the whole thing's kind of suspicious. They reckon some of them have got really expensive gear and stuff, and people causing problems and not being grabbed by the police and arrested like some other people are. And there's a pile of bricks outside a building ready for a riot.
Listen,
there's a lot of strange stuff.
Countryman is asking, do you have a link for Discord?
Susan normally plugs it down the side button.
Yeah, there we go. Susan's replied. It's all cool. It's all good.
Yeah. She normally just cuts and pastes something. She's got something organised there normally. We also got Super Chat if you want to donate a couple of bucks for Robert's time. Well, towards license fee. I actually haven't even covered the last bills, the last licenses still, and I spent probably, let's see, a couple of $1,000 on UPSs for protecting the phone line and computers while we're doing live stream, so it's not interrupted. But yeah, all that, there's all ongoing costs that comes out my own pocket, of course. So any couple of bucks heading towards this way, towards the non-profit channel, because that's basically what it is, all helps us. Unfortunately, we don't talk fantasy here. We just talk the facts and the cases, and with Robert. And I do video analysis on Saturdays, and we look over videos, MUFON cases and stuff, and see if we come across any really good videos. But somehow they claimed to put up everything on MUFON, didn't they? And they don't hide anything from that Jan Hassan interview with UFO News Network, and somehow I don't believe it, because then he said and he talked about sometimes they remove stuff, making up some stuff. What did he say there? I can't quite remember now. For various reasons, and they can remove stuff. So yeah, I don't know. It's all kind of suspicious, MUFON and how they operate, really, as far as I'm concerned. But anyway, let's see. Where's the end thing gone?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'll just say good night here on the side anyway, and I will see you
Okay, good night
again
all. Next
I'll
week,
probably
same
be
time
doing
next week.
I'll probably be doing a show Wednesday or Thursday, and then Saturday, and then we're back to you again, Robert. Good night, all.
Okay.
Thanks for liking and sharing and interacting. It's always good. People will get used to live streams over 10-minute videos, hopefully, and realize that coming on the side, or even when we have open lines to talk about your own experiences, is a good thing, rather than just have it all flashy, sensational videos of skydivers and lights in the sky that mean nothing. So anyway, we'll just end it there for Sunday, and we'll see you again soon. Sounds like someone's battery's getting low. Robert.
Yeah, it's fine. Don't worry about it.
Here we go. Good night. The Matrix Kiwi is powering down. See you, Charles. See you, Countryman. See you, Joe. Who else we had on the side? Forgotten. I'm not sure how many. I'm not sure how many with the UK though. This time.
Couple of new ones, wasn't there?
Yeah. Alright, at the end now. Click in the end button.